Hello, hello. We're back again. We're gonna watch Earthling Ed's new video. Let's take a look.
So I've been vegan now for 10 years, and there's something that I wish I had known 10 years ago when I made the change, which is about identity. And this is an issue I think is really important for us as vegans and important for anyone who cares deeply about something.
Hey, Kerry, how you doing? Good to see you.
I think it's really important for us as vegans because how we identify with veganism and how we have our identity around veganism, I think really influences how we feel about the world around us. And I suppose what I mean by that is when I first went vegan, I was so passionate about it and it became so all consuming in terms of that passion and in terms of that outrage I had around the issue of animal exploitation, that the vegan thing, so to speak, came to define who I was. And what I've learned in recent years, and what I've come to realize in recent years, is that you can make time for other parts of who you are without it impacting your passion, dedication, and feelings towards veganism. And I feel like at the beginning and with the first few years of being vegan, and especially when I started advocating and really getting involved in activism and education and such, it became so consuming in my mind that there were other aspects of who I am that maybe I didn't make time to nurture and didn't take time to
Nice, Kerry. I'm glad to have you here. What's got you waking up so early always?
take time to look after in a way. Because I think what's really important for all of us is that recognition that veganism might be the biggest part of who we are. It might be the thing that defines us more than anything else. It might not be for you, it might be. But I think for all of us who are vegan, one thing we can probably all say is that veganism is a huge part of who we are. But it's not the only part of who we are. It's not the only thing that defines us. It's not the only thing that we find value in, find fulfillment from. There are many things, most likely, that also define who we are, how we perceive the world around us, what we find enjoyment from and fulfillment from, what makes life ultimately worth living, what makes life ultimately something that we find enjoyment and satisfaction from. Now, speaking of doing things
This guy's Riz is just on an infinite upswing. I'm sorry to hear that, Kerry, but I'm glad you're here anyway.
a little differently, I want to tell you about the partner of today's video, which is Suri. Now, I've actually been using the Suri toothbrush for about a year or so now. So when Suri reached out and said, would I like to partner with them on a video, I was really happy to do so because I actually use their products every single day. Now, before I switched to the Suri toothbrush, I had a sort of generic electric toothbrush. It was clunky, it wasn't very aesthetically pleasing, the heads were the disposable plastic ones, and the battery was
Damn, that's
But
awesome.
actually, one of the
British
best things about the
Indonesia.
Suri toothbrush is the battery. It's also fantastic because it's a sonic toothbrush, which is good for oral
Hey, nice to see that Ed's getting sponsors, by the way. I don't think I've seen this before. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
health, and the heads are recyclable and plant-based. In fact, they're made from castor oil and cornstarch. And what happens is Suri will send out a prepaid compostable mailbag when you order the heads. When you've used the heads, you can then send them back to Suri free of charge, and they will recycle the heads and then compost the prepaid mailer bag. Now, I'd somewhat resigned myself to thinking you had to compromise between oral health and sustainability, with manual toothbrushes maybe being the most sustainable, but being the worst when it comes to oral care and dental hygiene. But the Suri means you don't have to compromise.
I think it's a good example, honestly, because, you know, if at a certain level of reach as an activist, you can start to monetize that in other ways and allow you to spend more of your time doing it, or to have, you know, higher quality equipment, or, I mean, frankly, Ed gives his spare resources in terms of his time and money, I'm sure, to a lot of vegan causes. But yeah, I encourage vegans to not, you know, look sideways at sponsorships and stuff like that, right? It's ultimately going to allow them to do more of this kind of stuff, which is awesome.
So you can get the best clean for your teeth while also making the sustainable choice with your oral care products as well. And you can also get a travel case. And the travel case, as well as being really stylish, also comes with a UVC light inside. The UVC light is essentially a cleaning light, which means that it keeps your toothbrush more hygienic and clean. So if you'd like to check out Suri products for yourself, you can actually get 20% off by using the code EdSuri, and the link can be found in the description to this video. So a huge thank you to Suri for partnering with me on today's video, and now let's get back to the topic at hand. So to bring it back to the conversation about identity, the thing that I wish that I'd realized 10 years ago when I first made the change is that you don't have to compromise on the other aspects of who you are. And actually doing so comes at a detriment to yourself and probably the long-term sustainability of you being an activist or an advocate or a person who spends time trying to convince people of the merits of no longer exploiting animals. I think sometimes we can feel guilty if we nurture other aspects of who we are, because I think in doing so, we worry that we might be devaluing or reducing the perceived severity of animal exploitation in our mind and in our actions. And I really think that's a very harmful way of thinking about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it. I mean, I always say that it's a reality that we all have limited time and resources to spend doing anything, and there is only a certain amount of stuff that you can fit in your life. I'm sure we all know people who have tried to do every hobby going and be into, surfing and playing rugby and playing golf or all these different things. And you end up not really having enough time to commit to any of it properly. Now, that said, I don't think that you should... There's certainly benefits to having other things in your life besides vegan activism, if only for an instrumental purpose of increasing your, resilience or stick-with-itness for vegan activism in the long term. It might be the case that you're more likely to burn out if you don't do anything else. But it's all about balance, isn't it? I mean, I think that it's going to be different for each person as well. I frankly don't have that many natural interests outside of trying to reduce animal suffering. If I wasn't doing this right now, I would be sitting on the sofa watching The Office for the 10th time, right? Literally wasting time. Now, someone could say time that you enjoyed wasting wasn't wasted, right? And that's serving a purpose and helping you to rest and everything like that. I remember Joey Carbstrong saying something like, there's a lot of discussion about burning out from doing too much, but you need to also be thinking, am I doing enough? I think that it does reflect the urgency for doing vegan activism to be quite a big part of your life. Yeah, that's fair, Kerry. That's fair. I think it makes you more relatable as well, right? It's ultimately beneficial to not have everyone you know being vegan and stuff like that. Because you're going to be able to influence people that you spend time with. Not wasting time has to be something that gives you something back at the end of it. Yeah, that makes sense. The Office is funny though, not the American one. I'm not gonna lie, I do love the UK Office, but there's so much more of the American one that when you rewatch shows, it's basically, it feels like infinite episodes of it. I've spent hours of my life watching that, and only on the 10th time through.
And I say that because of past experience. When you become so involved in something and you spend all your time working on it, thinking about it, talking about it, engaging with it, and you don't spend any time nurturing those other aspects of who you are, the other things that define you, I think that actually sets you up to have problems in the long run. Because we all need space away from the heavy issues that exist in the world. And my word, there are a number of heavy issues that exist in the world, this being one of them. We all need mental space and physical space away from these things. Otherwise, we are potentially jeopardizing the viability of us engaging with this meaningfully for years to come. And I think a lot of ex-vegans who stop being vegan, I think for a number of them, I think they became so absorbed in veganism that they felt almost trapped within it. And I'm speaking mostly here about people who are activists, because while the majority of people who stop being vegan are going to be people who maybe did it for dietary reasons, so they weren't actually vegan, or maybe they were ethically connected, but they never really absorbed themselves in the world of veganism. Maybe their friends weren't vegan, and so they were constantly battling against the social pressure and the dynamics in their actual lives, and maybe they just became isolated and lonely and lost that passion. But there's the other people, the people who were...
Yeah, that's true, Kerry. I think that's kind of what he's saying, hey. Nice, yeah, that's cool. I can't believe you're learning Indonesian, that's awesome. It's a different alphabet, is it?
Fully absorbed in veganism. They went to activism events, they had vegan friends, they were talking about veganism online. And I think for many of us, those are the people we find ourselves most confused about when they stop being vegan. But I think that maybe the issue of what I'm talking about today could potentially explain why that happens for some of them, or even many of them. I think when you become so one-track minded on something, and it consumes you and your life and your identity in the way which can ultimately feel quite confining, that the mental process you go through is to try and reject it, to try and free yourself from this self-imposed confinement, so to speak, so that you can start to breathe and feel like a different person.
It's quite cool. I've only just noticed he's doing this off the dome. I presumed that these longer monologues are written. I'm sure he does plan it out to some extent, right? But he speaks so fluently without reading, unlike some people. Yeah, he's Rizmaxing, this guy. Indonesians big into tempeh. Yeah, I've heard this. I think that's where tempeh is invented. Is that right?
You become so absorbed in something which is heavy and hard and disturbing and awful, and it can make you lose faith and hope in humanity. It can make you look at friends and family and people on the street and feel full of despair. It can make you not like people. It can make you question the morality of our species, the type of people we are. It can bring up some huge questions in your mind, existential questions. It can cause you to fundamentally change your perception of the world around you in a way that is not necessarily positive. You might have been someone who was raised feeling quite optimistic about people, liking people's company, being very social, being very...
No way. The word for tofu is the same as the word for knowledge, wisdom. Oh, that's cool.
Outgoing. You go vegan and all of a sudden the world maybe changes how it looks to you because it seems dark and dangerous and immoral in a way that maybe you'd not thought of before, and you kind of realize that, hang on a minute, bad things in the world aren't just being done by bad people, they're being done by good people who are maybe ignorant or selfish or apathetic. And then that becomes, well, how do we define good and bad, and all of these big questions, and you can feel quite scared and isolated even if you have vegan friends and go to activism events, maybe more so.
Yeah, there's a lot of that Vistopia kind of vibe and feeling. It is... I think that there is a lot to be said for taking seriously the bleakness of it and interacting as if it is as serious as it is. But it is bloody heavy, isn't it? I mean, it's difficult for vegans, I think, to look directly at it. It's like the sun. They have no word for bee.
So, because those activism events, they may create a vegan bubble around you, but that bubble might be isolating you even more from the rest of society. And that isolation can play heavy on our well-being. It can be heavy on our well-being. And so I think for some people who become very heavy activists, who are going every weekend to events, doing quite draining events, having arguments, going to slaughterhouses, whatever it may be, I think that that bubble they find themselves in can actually start to make them feel like they need just to break out of that bubble. And it's not about widening the bubble, let's say. It's about popping it, it's about getting out of it and just integrating into a different world. That seems to be the mental process they have. When actually, really what we should be doing is expanding our bubble, not just keeping it so insular that the world is defined simply by our veganism. I think it's so important that we breach out of that a little bit so that we can keep ourselves grounded and keep ourselves rooted in the world around us, because it might not be the best world, right? Far from it. It might be a scary world. It might be an unpleasant world because of the things that are happening, but we can still be grounded in that world in a way which means that we can feel a part of it, not to condone it, but to allow ourselves the space to exist in it. And we have to exist in it. That's not something that's negotiable. We have to find a way to exist in this world, because without doing so, we're going to encounter problems. And the thing that I realized, and maybe this isn't something that you've ever had a problem with, maybe you're listening.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like he's somewhat describing a experience of dystopia, where you kind of, yeah, it's just the bleakness, the social disconnect is a part of it, the feeling of sort of betrayal in some sense. That can be very all-encompassing if you let it be. You do just need to interact and live in the world, right? It's like he says, what choice do you have but to do that? Maybe we'll watch one of my Dystopia videos afterwards. I quite like those. I'm pleased with those two that I made.
Thing to me, you're thinking, this seems fairly obvious, we need to make sure that we make time for other things in our lives. So maybe this doesn't necessarily resonate with you in the way that it's resonated with me, but maybe it does.
Yeah, I hear that. I feel like you're speaking to me. Get a life, mate, you say.
I realized that there is more to me than just veganism. And that gave me the space to feel more passionate about veganism in a way, because it allowed me to experience it in a way that felt more in keeping with who I am and the person I am. So if you like going to gigs, you like going to shows, you like going to nightclubs, you like a certain genre of music, maybe you like going to the cinema, maybe you have a...
Yeah, that's cool, Gary. Learning language is a good one, I think, because it's constructive. It's sort of synergistic, isn't it? I think vegan gym bros have this as well, of which I'm getting there. But yeah, something, an interest, a hobby, like he's about to say.
Hobby.
That is separate from veganism per se, but it can be sort of synergistic in a sense. Yeah, I think that's a good way of thinking about it. I wonder what other kind of hobbies could be complementary, like learning a language or going to the gym.
And it could be any hobby. It could be from playing sports to collecting something to whatever it might be. Playing video games, making music, writing, whatever it might be. It is so important to take time in your life to nurture those parts of who you are as well. Because I think without it, we can run into more problems than we need to. And so I think identity is
I'm kind of cheating, so I'm trying to make the hobby still about veganism ultimately. maybe that doesn't count.
Is a big part of this. We are proud of being vegan, and of course we should be. But there are other things that we can feel pride in ourselves about, other accomplishments, other life-enriching pursuits, other lifestyle choices, other mentality shifts, other mindsets. There are other things that define who we are and define the experience of life that we're living. And I think that to fully reap the benefits of veganism, we have to make time for those things as well, because in doing so, I think we can create a better relationship with our veganism and with our advocacy.
Veganic gardening, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, gardening's a good one, actually. I always feel like I'm going to hate gardening, and I always enjoy it more than I imagine I will. Maybe that's something I should do more of. My garden's a mess as well, so
Because if not, the world can feel quite claustrophobic at times, and it can feel quite isolating, and it can feel like sometimes we are participating in a world that we are not a part of. It's almost
Yeah, that's a good point, AA, the vegan clothing in the gym. Not yet, because I'm not really stacked enough, but we'll get there. We'll get there. When I get into real good shape, then I'll get the vegan tank tops out. I used to wear them when I was in a little bit better shape, but we'll get there.
almost like there's a screen in front of us, and
I do own about half a dozen vegan tank tops, so
you have this feeling about the world, and the world is continuing around you, outside of you, just there in front of you. But sometimes it feels like we're kind of disassociated from that. Maybe we can't just fully integrate with that because there's something there which is holding us back. You know, the thought of what's happening to animals, the thought of the problems. And that's the same for all social justice issues. There can be this sense, of course, that you are existing in a world, and this world has these terrible things happening in it. And you're kind of like participating in this absurdity in a way, but we're supposed to continue existing in this world where people are continuing about their daily lives, but there are all of these things happening which are terrible, and it just feels so weird. And I think for me, I sometimes have judged, and I've looked at the world happening around me, and I've thought, how can these people be acting?
here he is. That's me about 5 years ago. But if I advocate on my tank top, is that a vested interest?
This way, how can these people be enjoying their life? How can people be finding fulfillment from life when there are these terrible things happening? And it's been isolating for me. And making time to listen to music, to watch films that aren't vegan documentaries always, making time to do things that are also a part of who I am has allowed me to better exist in a world where, yes, if I stop and think about it, I go, what is going on? Like, the world is continuing, but there's genocide, and there's murder, and there's war, and there's starvation, and there's animal suffering and cruelty and exploitation. There's degradation, and there's poverty, and gosh. But we have to exist in a world, even if it feels absurd, because if we don't find a way to exist in that absurdity, I think we impact our ability to sustainably embody the change that we want.
Nice, Lambretta. I was thinking about making some vegan 2.0 merch to get the message out there. It's quite a cool, pretty sure I come up if you search for vegan 2.0, so whacking that on hats and stuff like that, I might have a look at that.
Want to see. And I think part of that is nurturing other aspects of who we are. I think that's probably all there is really to say. I mean, I'd love to know what you think about this, and if you've encountered similar things to me, where you've reached points in your life or in your veganism where you've gone, hang on a minute, what else is there? What else do I enjoy? Because we had all these passions, all these things that we've enjoyed throughout.
I appreciate you, Oppenheimer. I would do it. I was looking on this Printful site, and I would do a margin going to FarmKind most likely. But yeah, it can be done pretty cheaply. They're like 20 quid hats.
For our lives. And we should
You have to set up a website and everything though, that's the lag part.
don't feel guilty for embracing those things as well. So I'd love to know what you think. Those are some sort of personal, honest thoughts that I've had. And I feel like if at the beginning of my veganism I'd connected with that more, I'd have felt less guilty. And
Fair play, Gary. Yeah, if you're prone to misbehave in public, wear a Meat Eater t-shirt instead, hey?
I felt less of a heaviness at times, and I'd have felt more capable, maybe more confident perhaps, because another thing is about remaining hopeful and optimistic. And I know it can seem ridiculous to be optimistic in this world right now, but I think it is hope and optimism which gives us the drive to keep on going day by day and not to sink into apathy and isolation. And I think participating in the world, even if it is absurd at times, participating in the world and finding fulfillment from other things that define who we are is a way that we can feel more hope and optimism. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, let me know what you think. I would really love to know, but I've just been thinking about it and I want to share some thoughts with you. So there we go. Anyway, that brings me to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, a huge thank you to Suri for partnering with me on today's video. All right then, I look forward to speaking to all of you in the next video.
Good lad, as always. Yeah. Having other things that can allow you to have a little bit of distance when you are feeling this topic. Other interests, other hobbies, other things that you can kind of nurture. I feel like that's pretty sensible advice. I felt like he was talking to me. Does everyone feel like that when they watch Ed? Maybe. He's very good, isn't he? What do we got here, Lambretta? My brother told me never open links on stream, but I trust you.
For those of you watching this back, make sure you pay attention. You may have heard me say these things before,
Is it only in your right ear? Is that just me?
but it's important to have it fresh in your minds before we get out there and do this work. When you're standing in the queue, make sure you're standing nice and straight like a statue the entire time. Your feet should be straight as well. So it's important that you're not standing with your feet pointed out like this. You'll look more professional. And it's important that while you're holding the screens, you're holding them from the bottom of the screens, not from the corners. That includes your thumbs. Have them on the bottom of the screens. You can actually grip the bottom of the screens, but just have them on the bottom and not on the corners. This is important for functional reasons as well as aesthetic reasons. The functional reasons are that you can flatten the screen a lot easier by pulling the bottom of the screen towards your body. And it's important that we have a flat screen because this reduces the glare, and it also
Yeah, I can see it on OBS now. It's done that's grating, isn't it?
makes it easier for tall and short people to see the screens. You need everybody to see these screens clear. It's also important if you want to adjust the angle of the screen, and the organizers with the red lanyards will be the ones that do that with you. We will make eye contact with you and we'll have our hands out like this and we'll adjust like this. So you just follow our hands and you'll know that you need to move the screen accordingly. And it's a lot easier to do that when you have your hands on the bottom of the screens. If you need to take a break, you raise your hand and just wait for an organizer with the red lanyard to come over, and we'll find someone. Just give us a couple of minutes to switch in with you. Don't move, don't take off your straps or anything until someone is ready to switch in with you. And if you see someone who hasn't been spoken to yet, raise your fist. And the outreach team needs to pay attention to this, and we'll go over and speak to that person as soon as possible. Give it at least 10 seconds and raise your fist so that you can help the outreach team to do our job better. All right? When it comes to outreach, please remember that when you're doing outreach, you need to circulate the area really well. Please don't stand around in clusters, and definitely don't socialize while you're here, because we are here to take serious action for the animals. We can socialize after these actions when we have dinner together or whatever. But while we are here, please maintain your focus on the outreach and reaching non-vegans and making them not only vegan, but activists, and maintain that goal in mind at all times, okay? While you're doing outreach,
That's cool how he talks about trying to get them to be activists, even in the first contact, I suppose, for some of these people.
please remember the 3 principles that we have. The protocol is something I can't get into fully because you have to watch the masterclasses that are online. The latest one can be watched at onedamnmonth.com. Go and watch that ASAP. It's been up for about a week now, and we get really deep into the protocol and the principles that we have. But let me just summarize it for you into 3 principles. Number 1, we are not just here to give people education. We're not here to just raise awareness. We're not here to just inform people about what's going on to the animals. That is a very weak goal. And it's also condescending because a lot of people already have access to this information. What's missing in society is not the awareness about this issue. What's lacking is accountability. Even if they have...
Yeah, this is the whole sort of philosophy on AV, at least. I do like that word accountability. I do vibe with this. I mean, there has been times in my life when I know I'm kind of doing something wrong, and sometimes it takes a friend or a colleague, whoever it may be, to give you that nudge and say to you, look, you must know, you must know that this isn't the right thing, right? But without that, I mean, yeah, people will allow themselves to go on doing a wrong thing. And it's remarkable how little accountability some adults can have, because, you know, if you're only answerable to your boss, basically, and your spouse, I guess, right? And yeah, even then, some people are not particularly answerable, right? So accountability is, I like that being the sort of key word.
Have seen this footage, and a lot of people have already seen this footage. They choose to ignore it. They choose to be complacent. So our job is to make sure we put them in the hot seat. We are there to make sure that they understand that they have a moral obligation and they are individually responsible for what's happening to these animals. Number two, put them in the victim's position, because if you're not doing that, they will never understand the severity of this injustice. Just like with any injustice, we analyze it from the victim's point of view. And so, of course, people are not going to understand this unless they see it from the victim's position. So it's your job to do that. If they give you a ridiculous excuse, mirror that excuse back to them by saying, hang on a second, if you were in the victim's position and I use that line of logic to just...
I bet this is all quite difficult to remember and do in the moment. Like with everything, the more you do these things, the better you'll be at it. But this is a really valuable briefing in, you know, less than 10 minutes. Just imagining if this is the briefing that I'm, you know, listening to and I'm about to go and have to do it. I suppose, yeah, like with everything, it's practice, and you're gonna get better at it. Hey, you're gonna get used to that process.
justify doing this to you, would you find that acceptable? And that's usually enough to destroy their arguments. It's easy to say all these things from the victimizer's point of view, isn't it? But when you analyze it from the victim's point of view, nothing is acceptable. None of these excuses are justifiable. Also remember that you should be speaking as if you were in the victim's position. Speak in the same way you would want to be represented if you were in the victim's position. And the third principle is, what are you going to do about this today? This is a call for action. This isn't just food for thought. People will say things like, I will try, I'll think about it. Yes, I'm going to change, like this woman earlier. Yeah, I'm going to. Yeah, eventually. Yeah, I'll reduce. Yeah. These people obviously don't understand the urgency and the severity of this injustice. So again, you need to make sure you put them in the victim's position, principle 2, and principle 1. Hold them accountable for their individual responsibility. What I like to say is, if you were in the victim's position, if I was the one oppressing you, would you want me to eventually stop? Or would you want me to reduce how much I exploit you? Or would you want me to stop right now? How fast would you want this to end is the question we have in the flowchart.
Oh, they do literally have a flowchart planned out. That's cool. I was just thinking, yeah, because they will do this, right? We've watched AV activists on the channel before, and they are pushing to get you to say, I'm going to be vegan starting from now. My instinct is that that's very, very rare for someone to be sincerely like, I've now eaten my last animal product after this conversation, right? But that said, we looked at this survey data the other day, and it's had about 50% of vegans said that they had gone vegan overnight straight away. Which over 50% in fact, which really, really surprised me. And then you got 37% gradually transitioned over a period of time. But most went straight away. So, you know, watching this, I was going to say, look, I don't know if that's always going to be realistic for a lot of people, and I still have my skepticism about that, frankly, but clearly a lot of people do it straight away. So maybe this method of making the urgency very clear and, you know, cut the bullshit, let's get it done. I mean, it certainly works for some things, right? I feel like there's a lot of things that would never get done if it doesn't get to the cut the bullshit stage. So yeah, good for them, I guess. I mean, I always wonder about whether it's worthwhile. Now, you know, I've never done this kind of street activism, and far be it from me to tell anybody how to do it as well, particularly someone that's been doing it for a long time. I would be thinking about it like a negotiation where you have like a fallback position that where if it becomes clear the person's not going to say that they're going vegan now, what else might we be able to extract from somebody basically who's like most of the way there? I totally agree with you in principle, or I'm, you know, not going to, maybe I'll, you know, think about it, I'll watch this documentary or whatever, right? If they're quite keen, but they are just not going to say, yes, I'm vegan from now on. If it were me, I would want to have something to say, get a commitment to watch a documentary. I know that a lot of them will do that. Doing vegan 2.0 things as well, like donating to effective charities. Now, Paul spoke with Tobias Linnett the other week, and evidently these kind of pragmatic compromise positions are not going to be something in this guy's vocabulary. And frankly, I think that some people need to be like that and be sort of stubborn about it, right? I think there's space for pragmatists as well. But, you know, more and more as I read about this and watch videos about it and stuff, I'm really enjoying that part of it, which is like the synergy between the pragmatist and the idealist. Hey, Kale boy, how you doing? Welcome back. Good to see you.
If you were in the victim's position. And that's usually the most that you can do with most people. And also remember, we cannot convince everybody to become vegan. Accept that. We are only here to convince people who are reachable. Most people you speak with today will not be reachable. Accept that. Humans are scumbags. We are here for the people who have integrity, who have character, who actually respect animals for real. And there are a lot of those people here. So not all humans are scumbags. That's the good.
That's kind of interesting. I'm somewhat surprised to hear that, but I suppose pleasantly surprised, because like I was saying the other day, I feel like my instinct would be to prioritize to a great extent, right? You really will be able to reach some people. Some people are just waiting to be held accountable in this kind of situation, right? And you really won't be able to reach others. Like that fella the other day in the Oliver Lewis video that we watched, which, by the way, I got another good video of him that we're going to watch later. Now, I would have thought that an AV person would be saying, you know, you should be trying to close every deal, basically, and even if the person's resistant, you should go after them and so on. But I'm, you know, I guess pleased to see that he agrees with me that would be kind of a waste of time if somebody's clearly not going to do it. You've only got so many hours in a day that you can speak to people, right? And I wonder how obvious it is when you do speak to someone, like he says, who is open-minded and is actually reflective and engaging with it. I mean, I'm thinking of the difference between those two blokes on the video the other day, where the one was like, oh yeah, I used to be a vegan, I totally get it, it's totally right, and maybe I'll go back to it. And the other one was just was just not, right? They were worlds apart in terms of how worth speaking to they are, frankly, right? And the guy Oliver Lewis did a very good job of recognizing that and just focusing on the guy who was actually, yeah, tractable.
Good news. Maintain your focus on those people. There are only 4 things you can control with how successful you are in your outreach. Number 1, what you say. Number 2, how you say it. Number 3, who you say it to. Because if you're not talking to someone who's reachable, you should not be wasting your time with that person. Remember our 3 strikes and you're out policy. If you go through 3 excuses,
that's what someone mentioned the other day, hey, the 3 strikes and you're out.
With somebody and you've answered each of their excuses and they're still not satisfied and they're playing the whataboutism game, or they just keep going around in circles with you, then you know that you're speaking to someone who's not reachable.
That's so interesting. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you think of yeah, so somebody at the contemplation stage, somebody to whom it has occurred, like oh, well, we're doing factory farming and that's not really ideal. I mean, basically funding these torture factories, don't really want to be doing that. They are going to be, and you know, has like some legitimate questions about, well, what am I going to eat, or where am I going to get my protein, whatever it may be. Again, they're a world of difference from somebody who is at the pre-contemplation stage, has just never thought about it. In their mind, that fellow we were watching on the video yesterday, in their mind, it is just, you know, there's these fringe weird people over there called vegans, and it's a whole different thing, and it's not something that I'm a part of or have ever thought about. They've never thought about it, and they don't realise they've never thought about it. So many of them, yeah, will be generating excuses. I suppose that somebody who is kind of motivated but does have some questions will be asking their questions and interacting with the answers. But somebody just skipping to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing is not doing that. So that's a really interesting rule that they've kind of derived, and I'm assuming that these are, you know, based on their experience of, okay, well, you know, how they know how successful they've been in the past with different types of people and so on, right? So they can deduce some rules about what works.
Wrap it up by saying, look, this is going nowhere, and just move on, walk away from them. And that is a much stronger message that you can send to that person than having the perfect counter arguments. Because the message you're sending to that person is, at least one time in their lives, a vegan wasn't willing to put up with their bullshit. Value your time, stay empowered, because if you give your power away to non-vegans, you will not want to do this work for very long, and we want you to be able to do this sustainably. Stay empowered. That is completely within your control. And the last thing that you can control is how long you talk about this for, because even if you are talking to people who are reachable, it's important that you remember that you need to make the message sound as simple as it actually is, so that they can adopt it as fast as possible and digest it as fast as possible. Isn't that what we want? We want them to become vegan now. We don't want them to think that they need to go home and research this for days and days and watch all these documentaries and stuff. That's not necessary. People get it instantly. We've had people do that here at One Damn Month. It's not a huge truth bomb necessarily to understand that you need to respect animals. You either respect them or you don't. You either want to be responsible for.
I will say a lot of the people that they speak to on the street kind of, they do seem that they have thought about it before to some extent. I mean, a lot of them don't seem to have ever thought about it before, right? But you can kind of tell when somebody almost hesitates a little bit because they have been down this road before, and they know that whatever arguments they thought they had didn't really sound too good when said out loud, right? So yeah, I imagine that the pre-contemplation people are often the most confident in their incorrect position because they have not yet been shown that it's not feasible, right? Whereas people who, they give the game where they kind of know you're right already, I feel, in some of these people that you see.
Animals being exploited in the worst possible ways, or you don't. Simple truth. Please also remember to use the language exploitation far more than any of the other terms that you may use, such as suffering, abuse, killing. If you focus the conversation on exploitation, you actually cover the entire injustice. If you just focus on the killing, then you're not actually covering the breeding, you're not covering the raping, you're not covering the enslavements, you're not covering backyard chickens and all the other things that people love to get into. And if
yeah, that's a pretty good point as well. It's just like the most all-encompassing umbrella term to talk about all the things that we're concerned about. I have never really used the language of exploitation. I don't know why. It just doesn't. I don't know why. I always talk about suffering mainly, and that is how I mainly think about it. I mean, for me, exploitation, I always think of like some vaguely kind of Marxist ideas, which I think that are often misunderstood, or I mean, I don't really understand enough about them, but from what I do understand, I'm like, I'm not sure if this is right, guys. But I mean, this is a completely different case, right? This is a much clearer case of exploitation, I think, than like, you know, workers are exploited by their bosses, right? Where it's kind of like, well, it's very much dependent on interpretation and contingent. But yeah, I mean, perhaps I should reconsider that.
If you do focus on exploitation, it will address the niche things such as, what about crop deaths, or you just stepped on an insect, so yeah, that justifies me going to a steakhouse somehow. We're not exploiting insects to grow broccoli. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when it comes down to how to be the most effective, we have found in our communication to focus on exploitation. Veganism.
That's another good point. I mean, I suppose you could quibble about... Can you quibble about the definition of exploitation to include crop death? No, it doesn't. It'd be a stretch, wouldn't it?
It means to reject animal exploitation. That's as simple as it is. Going by the original Leslie Cross definition in 1951. Being a human being who rejects animal exploitation. It's literally defined in one line. It's not more complex than that. This is how we need to explain it to other people. You might even want to ask people, what does the word vegan mean to you? And I guarantee you most people will say, oh, it's about not eating meat and it's about not eating cheese and eggs. They think it's about what you don't eat, which means they think it's a diet. And that's your job to correct that. This is not about a diet, and it's not about a restrictive diet at that. This is about rejecting animal exploitation. That's what it is, an ethical stand.
I have to say, I don't really get the veganism is not a diet thing. I mean, like I said the other day, it kind of is mostly a diet, right? Is the implication that a diet's kind of optional? Is that why people say that? I just don't think... I mean, the idea is that it's more of a philosophy and way of being and everything, right? But in terms of actually tangibly what changes in how you interact with the world, we are mostly talking about what you eat. I don't know if there's good reasons to not say that.
A principle. And for those of you who are doing outreach, please make yourself available to be in the cube and keep those cubers fresh. All right? Let's go out there and kick some ass.
Yeah, it's interesting, Lambretta. I understand that exploitation is the proper word, but I don't think it resonates with new people as much as cruelty and abuse. Yeah, animal cruelty, animal abuse, that's definitely easier to say that's wrong for normies. Cruelty... I'm thinking about all the ways that you could quibble with all of these different words, right? I was going to say, is cruelty like an attitude that you have when you do the thing? And so if you don't have that attitude, then it ceases to be cruel, or it's from the perspective of the animal, obviously it's cruel. I feel like people involved with slaughtering animals would be inclined to disagree that it's cruel. That they're behaving cruelly. But I suppose that's always going to be the case, right? It's an ethical position for the most extended to your diet, yeah. Right, Kale Boy, yeah. Yeah, an extension of human rights to animals as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty intuitive. I'm always inclined to talk about suffering. I think that's just that's just how I think of it, really. I think of it as if every conscious being has one of those little diamonds over their heads, like The Sims. And the game is to get the average diamond color to be as green as possible. Something like that. But yeah, it's interesting the different implications of how different people think of these things, hey? Because then someone like Sam Harris will say, well, you could have like net positive welfare animal farms, and in that case, it might even be a bad thing if there were fewer of these net positive creatures being farmed, which that doesn't feel that intuitive to me, so maybe I am more interested in rights than I think I am. Veganism is the principle of liberating animals from exploitation by man. Yeah, that's a good definition. Yeah, exactly, Oppenheimer, like The Sims, you know. Yeah, I must have played The Sims at a very formative time in my moral journey. Well, we've got a couple of bits of news from my neck of the woods. Well, this is from Ireland, actually. I haven't read either of these, so we'll see what they're saying. This came out on Friday. Cork Mart fined €4,000 over calf welfare issues. In RTE, Eleanor Burnhill. A Co-Cork Mart has been fined... Is I meant to say that? It is a cooperative, but okay. A Cork Mart has been fined more than €4,000 after it admitted failing to ensure the welfare of a calf under European legislation that prohibits the lifting of the animal or the dragging of it by its head, ears, horns, leg, or tail. Cork Cooperative Marts, trading as Bandon Mart, with a registered address at Market House in Macroom and a trading address to Distillery Road in Bandon, pleaded guilty to offences under European regulations that were transposed into Irish law in 2006, relating to the transport of animals designed to prevent handling them in such a way as to cause them unnecessary pain or suffering. The offences in this case occurred at Bandon Mart on the 13th of February 2023 and on 17th of April that year. This strikes me as the kind of thing that probably is happening pretty much constantly. Dragging or lifting calves by the head, ears, horns, leg, or tail. I would not be at all surprised if that's a fairly common occurrence, that they're getting yanked around by the ears and stuff like that. But I guess in this instance, there was somebody with a camera there. Imogen McGuinness, an investigating officer from the Department of Agriculture, told the court that the matters were brought to her attention following an RTE Investigates programme broadcast on the 10th of July 2023 called Milking It, Dairy's Dirty Secret. Oh, based. So this outlet, which we're looking at now, RTE, made what I guess is a sort of mini documentary on the dairy industry, and this brought it to the attention of an investigating officer from the Department of Agriculture. Still photographs and video footage used in that programme were handed into Bandon District Court Judge Joanne Carroll. The company also admitted failing to ensure that the loading and unloading facilities for animals were adequately designed, constructed, maintained and operated in a way that would avoid injury or undue suffering to the animals, which were bull calves. I'm going to play the video. It's 1 minute 44, and it's going to entail some upsetting animal abuse scenes, so if you'd rather not see this, tab off and mute, I guess, for a couple of minutes.
These offences at...
Oh, I thought it was going to be all... Okay, well, I mean, still, viewer discretion advised.
Bandon Mart were brought to the attention of the Department of Agriculture following an RTE Investigates programme called Milking It, Dairy's Dirty Secret, which was broadcast in July 2023. During one incident on the 13th of February that year, a calf was dragged across a road and handled by its tail. A calf was also struck by a Mart employee. Whilst on April the 17th, an employee of a transporter company used an ash stick on an animal. Imogen McGuinness, an investigating officer with the department, submitted still photographs of these incidents to the court. The CEO of the company, Jonathan O'Sullivan, who was appointed just last year, attended today's hearing. The Mart's barrister stated that the company has fully engaged with authorities, has no previous convictions and has put new staff training and procedures in place. In a statement, the Department of Agriculture said the conviction and fines were an important reminder of the welfare obligations mart operators have in relation to the transport of animals, and that prosecution proceedings were ongoing, arising from the RTE Investigates programme. Judge Joanne Carroll acknowledged the Mart's early guilty plea and the actions it has taken since, but she fined the Mart a total of €4,250 for the 3 incidences, which involved the dragging and striking of animals on its premises. The Mart now has 4 months in which to pay. Eleanor Burnhill, RTE News at Bandon District Court.
Well, there you go. That was the violations. Dragging by the tail here. Oh, that's gotta hurt, right? It's basically picking you up by the bottom of your spine, right? And there they are, striking the calves as well. I mean, again, I don't doubt that this kind of thing, in fact, is routine. And it just so happens that this was the one where there was investigative journalists there, right? It's interesting, I guess, that you don't necessarily hear about investigation. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's going to... It doesn't seem likely that there would be an investigation of a factory farm and they find nothing objectionable happening to animals, right? No, I was going to say, you know, there's some evidence of abuse every time this happens. I guess that if you're an activist and you find no evidence of abuse, you wouldn't publicise that. But I just think the inside of any of these places looks horrendous. Actually, I'll tell you one thing that is kind of falsifiable in that sense. A lot of people are doing it live now, so you don't know what you're going to find when you go in, but they're live streaming and going into these facilities. And I guess that is kind of a way to say, I bet we're going to find some abuse if we go in here. And lo and behold, we did, right? In these cases that we've seen with, like with Plant Geezers, live streaming is running onto the farms and stuff like that. They never are keen to show you around, huh? The offences all relate to European legislation designed to ensure the safety of the animals. The charges related to breaches under Article 3 of that legislation, that no animal should be transported in a manner causing injury or undue suffering, and Article 9, which obliges those operating assembly centres to comply with technical rules such as not dragging animals or using a stick when they are loaded or unloaded from a vehicle. This really seems like something that could... I mean, I wonder how often these things are prosecuted, right? This really seems like something that is almost certainly going on all the time. And if it is just a case of having someone with a camera there, which, by the way, they look like that outside, some distance away from the facilities, right? If you look at this one, well, this person's in a car, I guess. This person looks like they're some way away, zoomed in on what's happening, right? So maybe it's about just constantly filming these places where they're transporting animals and then handing over whatever evidence is found to, you know, clearly you've got somebody in Ireland who cares about doing the right thing and prosecuting this. Good for Imogen McGuinness for properly investigating this and prosecuting it. They're going to be fined now, €4,000. Make them think twice before they whack these animals and pick them up by the tail. It's like when I spoke to that person from Legal Impact for Chickens. She said that there are animal cruelty, animal abuse laws, and it's just a case of enforcing them. And, yeah, documenting cases of breaking those laws seems to be a pretty tractable thing, particularly if you can turn up at these places, set a camera and wait, basically. I mean, I don't know how easy this would be or how tractable it would be in practice, maybe I'll try it. They can't stop you standing over the road with a camera. The court heard that on 13th February 2023, a young man in the intake area took a calf across a road, dragging and lifting its tail before proceeding to put it into a calf box. This person was a customer at the mart who the court heard to date had not been identified. Oh, interesting. He had a trailer and had not reversed it into position, instead dragging the animal across a road. The second incident also occurred on that date, in which an employee of the mart was seen to strike a young calf. So this was actually one day. These two separate incidents were filmed on the same day. So that's telling me that you probably do have a good chance of capturing something illegal if you turn up with a camera. This person managed to get two in one day. Now, this was part of an investigation by this outlet. Mart. I don't really know what that is. It's like a livestock auction. Okay, where were we? So second incident, same date. Overcrowding at the mart at its facilities had contributed to the problems. The incident on 17th of April related to the employee of a transporter company using an ash stick. The judge heard that this fell within the remit of the mart to ensure that cars were not hit with sticks under its licensing conditions. What is an ash stick? Oh, ash sticks for sale. That's not what I wanted. Okay, it's like a walking stick, is it? Okay. Hey, nice to see you, Lambretta. Take it easy. I appreciate you being here. Department officials had since met with the mart and barrister for them, Don McCarthy. Jesus, how do you pronounce this name? This could be the most Irish name ever. It's going to be like Donald, isn't it? Donka. Or Donica. Okay. Oh, here we go.
We are looking at how to pronounce this name, as well as how to say more interesting but often confusing names that many mispronounce, so make sure to stay tuned to the channel if you enjoy learning.
This is far more than I wanted from this video.
Donica. Donica is...
Alright, Donica. It says donuts in the subtitles, but Donica. Okay. Donica McCarthy BL said they're fully engaged and arranged additional staff, training for staff since this case was taken. Court Cooperative Marts, trading as banned, and Mart has no previous conviction, has been trading since 1956. Yeah, but I wonder how many people are turning up with cameras and recording this stuff, because they got two in one day. So that's telling me that it's probably kind of routine abuse and just nobody has recorded it and made complaints. Which seems like a massive opportunity. If these violations are as routine as I suspect they are, and I don't want to say easy to prosecute because, you know, they had someone with a camera there and it's taken evidently a couple of years since this happened in 2023. But if they are feasible to prosecute, then, you know, layering on a few €1,000 fines at a time to a bunch of different stakeholders in the livestock industries would be pretty based and would, you know, be a strong incentive for them to not do the illegal stuff, first of all. Right? People are not doing it. People are doing it because they think they're not going to get punished for it, basically, right? They just think no one's looking, okay, it's technically illegal, but whatever. I'm gonna fucking whack this animal. I mean, it's got to be a bleak life doing a job like that, right? Presumably that's not many people's first choice on career day. Barrister for the Department of Agriculture, Paula McCarthy, BL. Oh, sorry, we missed a paragraph here. In late 2023 and early 2024, new procedures were put in place. Some staff were disciplined and letters were sent out to its customers, he told the court. Barrister for the Department of Agriculture, Paula McCarthy, BL, said it would be seeking costs, in this case, of €3,500 plus VAT. Interesting. So the fine... It sounds like the fine was just to cover their costs, essentially. Is that how these things work? Fine 2000... Okay, well, let's see. Judge Joanne Carroll acknowledged the Mark's early guilty plea in this case and the actions it had taken since. She fined Band and Mark €2,000 for its failure to prevent the dragging of an animal, €750 for operating inadequate loading and unloading facilities in a way not to cause harm or undue suffering to an animal, and €1,500 for the offence dated 17th of April 2023 over the striking of an animal. The company has 4 months in which to pay these fines and costs. Well, good. There's a bit of... Oh, look at that. They actually got fined more than the Department of Agriculture was seeking. They were looking for 3,500. It ended up being 4.25. So that's pretty based. I mean, this is some hopium, if you ask me. I don't know how common this kind of thing is, but a journalist with a camera managed to capture 2 occurrences which were illegal on the same day, and managed to handle that in a way which, by the way, this part's just as important, managed to handle that in a way that actually got results from somebody in the Department of Agriculture to take seriously. Because I imagine it's very easy if you are such a person to look the other way. I mean, this person's called an investigating officer, so perhaps I'd be interested to know whether that relates to just animal welfare violations or other things as well. But in any case, well done to RTE for capturing this, for exposing it, and for pressing it to actually conviction and a fine. More of this, more of this. I mean, this makes me want to turn up at these facilities with a camera, and I'm pretty confident that if you could get a view, you know, if you're not just like obscured by gates or fences or whatever, I would feel pretty confident that you could get a view of something illegal happening. Given that these were things like hitting them with sticks, dragging them around, I mean, it's stuff that I would have thought would be quite common in these scenarios. But good, well done RTE. More of this, more of this. We got another one here on my side of the Irish Sea in the UK. Meat smuggling crisis risks major disease outbreak, warns MPs. This is kind of a bonkers story, and this will make you glad that you don't eat meat. And it'll make other people think twice about eating meat. Alarming amounts of meat and dairy products are now being illegally imported to Great Britain for both personal consumption and sale, says the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Committee in a report published today. MPs state that it is unacceptable that there is no clear publicly available data showing the scale and nature of the illegal meat entering the country and its destination, as they warn of large and increasing volumes of illegally imported meat finding its way onto high streets, farms, markets, restaurants and kitchen tables. The report highlights that illegal meat imports, which have been increasing for a number of years under a succession of governments, carry a high risk of animal diseases that threaten food security, farming and the economy. They highlight that some of the most serious animal diseases, like foot and mouth disease and African swine fever, can travel long distances and cross borders in contaminated meat and dairy products. So there's a bunch of meat and dairy being illegally imported into the UK. There's no clear data about the extent of this. It's ending up in restaurants and shops and in our houses without us knowing about it. And it has a decent chance of being infected with serious animal diseases like foot and mouth and African swine fever. So this is a pretty significant public health issue at this point. Illegally imported meat also poses a serious health risk to consumers, yeah, quite, as the conditions of slaughter, handling and storage are unknown and unregulated, meaning it is more likely to carry bacteria, viruses and parasites that can cause illness in humans. Yeah, I guess that if it's illegally imported, you don't know where it's actually come from. And therefore you can't have any certainty about the standard, the hygiene standards that the animals are being slaughtered and the products are being prepared. And if this is happening, nobody thinks that they're buying the illegally imported meat, right? So people are unwittingly buying this, cooking it and eating it, and there's no proper oversight of how it's being produced. I mean, that put me off if I was eating meat. In March, the committee visited the port of Dover and witnessed a van being searched with meat found packaged in plastic bags and newspaper, stowed in cardboard boxes and in a defrosted chest freezer. Meat found packaged in plastic bags and newspaper. Well, this does not sound like it's going to be meeting food safety requirements. The committee was greatly concerned to see the inadequate conditions of the border force facilities at the port, with limited ability to decontaminate inspection areas and no dedicated hand washing facilities. So meat's coming in wrapped up in bits of newspaper in a defrosted freezer chest freezer, and with no adequate facilities for actually handling and inspecting that in a hygienic way. I mean, this is just a nightmare. One worker told MPs they found an entire pig stuffed inside a suitcase, its legs cut off badly so that it could fit inside. Not a professionally butchered animal. Inside a suitcase. And this is ending up in British stores and restaurants and homes. It's literally just a hacked up pig that someone stuck in a fucking suitcase. Workers from Dover Port Health Authority told the committee that there are literally hundreds of targeted vehicles driving straight past, as we do not have the resources to stop and search. Oh, brilliant. So we've really no idea how much this is happening. These are just the ones we know about, right? Bits of defrosted meat wrapped up in newspaper, pig with his legs cut off, stuck in a suitcase. Why? I mean, would this not put you off eating meat if you're a meat eater? Oh, damn, that's based, isn't it, Kerry? How many... Is that like a league on Duolingo or something? Or you're spending too much time on it? The committee's report contests DEFRA's reassurance that intelligence-led checks are being performed at the border, instead summarising the reality on the ground as a limited and incomplete intelligence network, strained enforcement capability, and port facilities unsuitable for seizing significant volumes of potentially contaminated meat. So they just don't have the facilities or the capacity to stop this from happening. It's probably going to keep happening, that means. There's an unknown amount of illegal meat and dairy entering the UK. We've no idea of its provenance, we've no idea how much there is, we've no idea where it's ending up, and we've no idea if it's safe to eat. And that's in our food supply now. So if you eat meat, good luck, I guess. Today's report finds that there is currently no effective deterrent to meat smuggling. MPs call on DEFRA to deliver a plan to immediately start fining and prosecuting repeat offenders and those who are attempting to smuggle significant amounts of animal products. The committee notes DEFRA's plans to crash vehicles carrying illegal imports. Sorry? The committee notes DEFRA's plans to crash vehicles carrying illegal imports, but warns this is not a silver bullet to solve the problem. There's meant to be a disincentive to do it, I suppose. If you get caught, we're going to crash your vehicle. That seems pretty mental. Couldn't they just do a fine? What a waste of vehicles. I mean, just take it off them, right? Don't crash it. That's bonkers. Am I reading that right? Alright, well. The committee says that animal disease threats are a national security issue, but found that there is currently no identifiable or effective ownership of the issue of illegal meat smuggling, and call on DEFRA to create a strategy for product of animal origin smuggling. Create a strategy for... Okay. I feel like I should say labelling now. In collaboration with the National Food Crime Unit, the Scottish Food Crime and Instance Unit, Port Health Authorities, Inland Local Authorities and Border Force. Oh, sorry, yeah, product of animal origin. Yeah. This is the policy term for animal products. I don't know why they say it like that. The report also finds that public awareness of animal disease risks is low. Right, yes. I mean, this is not good news, is it? Yeah, national security issue. Unknown amount of potentially contaminated meat coming into the country and ending up God knows where. And nobody knows about it, and nobody... Right, low level awareness of animal disease risks. As is awareness of the rules about what food you can bring into the country for personal use or as a gift. MPs say this should be tackled with broader reaching communications and public awareness campaigns from the government. MPs welcome DEFRA's ban on personal imports of most meat and dairy from the EU, but say the ban has been toothless, with prohibited animal products continuing to enter the UK through airports, seaports and a Eurotunnel in parcels, personal baggage and vehicles. The report states that criminal enterprises are using the personal import routes to smuggle in large quantities of illegal meat for sale around the country with impunity. That is really not good. This is not a good situation. I mean, even aside from the animal angle of this, right, where God knows how these animals are being reared, they're certainly not being reared in line with, you know, animal welfare standards that farmers in the UK would have to observe. But this is a pretty significant public health issue. I mean, is this the time to be eating meat in the UK? We've got literally an unknown quantity of potentially contaminated meat everywhere that you can buy meat, essentially. The chair of the EFRA committee, Alistair Carmichael MP, said everyday vans laden with undeclared, unhygienic and unrefrigerated meat are rolling through our ports for distribution and sale in Britain. The authorities tasked with tackling this wave of illegal produce find themselves without the necessary leadership, resource and intelligence to do so. Burn. It would be an exaggeration to say that Britain is sleepwalking through its biggest food security... Oh, so, pardon me. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Britain is sleepwalking through its biggest food safety crisis since the horse meat scandal. The still bigger concern is the very real risk of a major animal disease outbreak. The single case of foot and mouth disease in Germany this year, most likely caused by illegally imported meat, cost its economy €1 billion. I mean... it's shocking that we can't do anything about this. We just don't have the resources or the facilities. There must be something that can be done here, right? This problem has been building over a number of years under successive governments. Jesus, how long has this been going on? We're calling on this government to get a grip on what has become a crisis by establishing a national task force with proper leadership and a strategy, boosting food crime intelligence networks, creating and enforcing real deterrents to tackle the criminal enterprises involved, and equipping port health and local authorities with the resources and the powers they need. Well, good luck, I guess. I mean, it sounds like a pretty difficult problem to do something about. Some of this is pretty gross. Unrefrigerated meat wrapped up in bits of newspapers, entire pig in a suitcase. I mean... if I was somebody who was eating meat in the UK right now, I'd think maybe it's a good time to try giving it a break. Oh, fair play, Kerry. Usually come first. Okay, in that case, yeah, that puts second in perspective, eh? I'd be stoked with that. When I was a kid, I heard a news story about some dude started killing people and selling them as pork to save money. Jesus. Yeah, I mean, if you're eating bits of cut up cooked mussel, it might not be the bit of mussel that you think it is. All right, we'll read one more, shall we? And then we'll do another video. It's graph heavy, which I always like. This is from Matt Ball's Substack. Can our choices make a difference? Talk as prepared for Madison, Wisconsin and Chicago, Illinois, June 2016. Some of the links are probably not good anymore. Post might be too long for your email client. You can see the whole thing on Substack. Okay, this is what I would be emailed. Despite what some vegetarians try to say, the stats have not gotten any better. The definition of insanity. For more, you know where to look. Okay. Let's start with the pop quiz. How many vegans does it take to change a light bulb? Answer, light bulbs aren't vegan. For some of us, the question, can our choices make a difference, seems silly. But of course our choices make a difference. A lot of people, though, think that in a world of 7, now 8 billion people, what is actually silly is to think that one person's choice can make a difference. A good friend of mine, Jason Gevernick-Metheny, wrote a scholarly analysis, Expected Utility, Contributory Causation and Vegetarianism, that was published in a peer-reviewed journal. In that paper, he lays out calculations that indicate our choices supposedly do make a difference. Oh, that's cool. Ah, that was one of the links that wasn't good anymore. But we've got the title of the paper, so we could have a look at that. There it is. Several authors have argued that act utilitarianism cannot provide an adequate critique of buying meat because a single meat purchase will not actually cause more farm animals to be raised or slaughtered. Thus, regardless of whether or not the production of meat is inhumane to animals, someone who buys meat is doing nothing wrong. This argument fails to show that meat purchases are morally permissible, however, because it assumes that act utilitarians would use actual utility in their decision to buy or not buy the meat. I show that act utilitarians cannot use actual utility as a decision procedure and must instead use expected utility to prescribe or proscribe actions. I then demonstrate how expected utility can be applied to cases of contributory causation, where many people seem morally responsible for causing something to happen. Buying meat is one case of contributory causation, where the probability of any single individual's affecting meat production is slight, but the expected disutility of affecting that production is substantial. Thus, in its expected utility form, act utilitarianism defeats the casual inefficacy defense of buying meat. I'm not sure if this even is a case of contributory causation. I mean, in some instances it might be, but if you buy a roast chicken, that's one chicken. Now there's going to be a little bit of give in the supply chain where, you know, the supermarket sometimes throws out chickens and sometimes doesn't have enough chickens, and therefore they, you know, it's not perfectly one-to-one. But in that particular causal chain, if you've bought the chicken, that was a chicken. But in any case, this is arguing that, yeah, vegetarianism works and veganism works. Being right versus making a difference. However, I don't know many people who choose what food to buy based on a utilitarian calculation of weighted probabilities and Bayes' theorem. Well, here's one of them. For example, I stopped eating animals 30 years ago because I realized I couldn't consider myself a good person if I was paying others to raise and butcher animals simply so I could enjoy a taste of flesh. Actually making a difference in the real world wasn't a consideration. This is a good example of my early days. I was concerned with being right. I wanted to win an argument with a meat eater. I wanted to ridicule meat eaters. I wasn't focused on actually changing the world, actually reducing the number of animals suffering. Contrary to my approach then, Peter Singer took this question seriously in his book Animal Liberation. He was sympathetic to the idea that one person acting in isolation may very well not make a difference. I can see this now. Even if we are the strictest vegan, some of our economic activity eventually pays the salaries of non-vegetarians, allowing them to buy more meat. In the end, the only way our food choices would have absolutely minimal negative impact would be if we didn't exist. So let's set non-existence as our baseline. That's what I think of as the baseline also. Other people might legitimately view the baseline as an average omnivore, and therefore you get positive points for being vegan. I don't know why. It seems to me the intuitive baseline is compared to if I didn't exist. Am I making the world a better place by existing? Can we do better than non-existence in terms of making the world a better place? Let me try to answer that by starting with some history. When I stopped eating animals, I was simply angry. As I said, I wanted to fight with meat eaters, attack and mock them. I obsessed and worried about abstractions and words and principles. I argued about exploitation, oppression, liberation. Outside of my marriage, the single most important lesson I've learned since then is the irreducible heart of what matters is suffering. Back then, although I was sure I knew everything, I really didn't know anything about suffering. Since then, though, I've developed a chronic disease and experienced times when I thought I was going to die, times when I wished I would die. Back in the mid-1980s, I didn't take suffering seriously. Now, however, knowing what suffering really is, and knowing how much there is in the world, all my previous concerns seem, well, to put it kindly, silly. It's a nice Vegan 2.0 graph here, early Vegan 2.0 graph from veganstrategist.org. Your impact on eating animals, what you eat, your impact on what others eat. Yep. And this is a theme that I touched on in conversation with Ask Yourself as well, who says that if you're only focused on your own consumption, your ceiling for impact is one person's worth. And if you create 2 vegans in your lifetime, then that will be, you know, you're doing more already than through your own veganism. Today, I realise that our individual day-to-day food choices matter very little compared to the impact we can potentially have with our example, our advocacy, and our donations. Quote from Tobias. Our example, our advocacy, and our donations. Yeah, so here's the give more. I guess this would be the share more. And in a sense, this is the do more. I mean, yeah, this is kind of the do more and the share more, really, hey? But saying an example, yeah, that is equally, not equally important, but is also important to demonstrate, you know, here's a vegan who has been vegan for however many years and has, you know, is in good physical health and, you know, is a relatable person or whatever else, right? That's why we need those hobbies. That's why we need those hobbies. A few quick facts. So let me summarize really quickly a few facts and statistics from the past 30 years that can help us make a real meaningful difference in the world. We've seen these graphs before. This is, again, the number of animals killed or used, and we see about 99% of them are farm animals, with a comparatively very small portion coming from labs, shelters, and for clothing. And then this is the money donated to animal charities, and the farm animals are just this, about 2 or 3% of all of the money donated, with the majority going to shelters even though the number of animals is only this tiny little sliver here. You've probably all seen this graph from animal charity evaluators. Yes, we have. The takeaway is that, to a first approximation, every animal killed in the United States is a farm animal. Yeah. Compare that to this second graph, which shows where animal-related charitable donations go. Now farm animals are the tiny sliver in the bottom right. In short, when trying to make a difference for animals, we're working with one hand tied behind our backs, because resources are in no way allocated proportionally. Yeah, I've heard that animal shelters are often, like, have more money than they know what to do with, because it's a very common thing for people to leave money to in their will. If you don't know any living people, I guess you leave it to the cats, right? That's a common thing that people do. So they get a lot of what they call legacy donations, right, which is in people's wills, and they are often substantial amounts, right? You're dying at 80 something, you might have £1 million of assets, and even if you leave 10% of it to the cats charity, I mean, think about what that money could do if it was going to effective Vegan 2.0 charity, hey? Not surprisingly, we've not done the best job. This is the percentage vegetarian from Vegetarian Resource Group survey of the last 16 years. Yeah, it looks like a bit of an upward trend if I'm being generous, but yeah, I would think we would hope to have made more progress in 15 years. Without error bars, which are huge. Okay, interesting. Although from within the vegan bubble it can feel as though there are tons more vegans, the actual surveys of the actual population in the United States shows no clear growth in the percentage of US population that's vegetarian. Or to look at it on the appropriate scale, yeah, this one's a little bit less inspiring, hey? It is worse today. In terms of meat consumption, it is even worse. Yeah, this is going to be a small body problem, isn't it? Look at that. Red meat coming down. Chicken going up. This graph shows per capita meat consumption in the US. While beef has declined, chicken consumption has more than doubled. Given how small birds are, this means many more animals are dying every year compared to when Peter Singer published Animal Liberation. And yes, it is worse today on an absolute and per capita level. As an aside, I know we all have a much greater affinity for mammals than for birds. But not only are chickens being killed in vastly greater numbers than cows or pigs, they're suffering absolute horrible cruelty. Here is one more piece of bad news. Oh yeah, this is going to be the Fauna-Lytics ex-vegetarians thing, hey? According to a number of surveys, including the most recent one by Fauna-Lytics, the vast majority of people who go vegetarian or vegan eventually go back to eating animals. More than 4 out of every 5 individuals who go veg eventually quit. It would be bad enough to realise that we're throwing away more than 80% of advocacy efforts, but it's actually worse than that. Everyone who quits being veg becomes an anti-spokesperson against compassionate eating. A public and often loud example opposing taking any steps that help animals. Is that the case? An anti-spokesperson against compassionate eating? I mean, not necessarily, right? It depends on the situation. Certainly, it doesn't look good for people who might be considering it if they see their friends trying it and then giving it up, or people who are committed to it sacking it off. But I don't think it's necessarily the case to become an anti-spokesperson. Hi Axel, how are you doing? Thanks for joining. Oh, hey. Oh, thank you, Kerry. Hey, Evil Steven, how's it going? Nice to see you guys. So with all that said, what do we know that might actually help us? First is a graph from Ben Davido. I don't think I've seen this one before. Oh yeah, okay, we looked at something similar the other day, hey? Relative number of farm animals harmed by average American consumption of different foods. This shows the relative number of animals harmed by the standard American diet, and the vast majority of those animals are birds. Look at it a different way over at Animal Visuals. Click the link for the animation. Let's do it. Oh no, this is horrible. I've seen this before. Yeah, I don't want to watch this. Don't look, don't look. There's, yeah, just vast numbers of animals being killed. Mark explicitly concludes, leaving chicken and eggs out of our diets will have the greatest effect on reducing the suffering and death caused by what we eat. Okay, I'll put the link in the chat if people do want to see that. It's animalvisuals.org. It sounds so scary. Hey Axel, yeah, my PhD is in psychology. I do a lot of consumer psychology about meat and vegetarianism and veganism and alternative proteins. And I try and debate meat industry scientists, but we've only had one of them so far. And actually, I did debate an ex-vegetarian who I wouldn't say he's an anti-spokesperson. Well, maybe he is. He goes on podcasts and talks about how great it is to eat meat again. So, yeah. Okay. Now, I don't want to focus on death in and of itself. I would much rather be a field mouse living free until killed by a combine harvesting soybeans compared to a chicken whose entire life is in utter agony. Yeah. I don't mean that as hyperbole. Estimated number of chickens who suffer to death without even making it to slaughter. Estimated number of animals killed for fur in shelters and in laboratories confined. Yeah, that's pretty striking, isn't it? It's a bit like a combination of a few of these graphs above, right? The vast majority of... Again, this is only land animals, right? So there's no... Oh, no, they do have fish in there. Okay, well, never mind. The graphs I've seen have fish as a much larger segment than chicken even, but okay. But it's kind of a combination of that graph and this graph, right? This is not even there's not even all chickens, it's only the ones who suffer to death without making it to slaughter, and they're dwarfing this other orb over here. Arish Sethu of Counting Animals. Ah, yeah. I looked at this website a while ago. This is like an early effective animal advocacy research source. Looks like the latest post in 2015. I've definitely been on this website and cited it a bunch though. I think the use is the most important part to talk about, not the death or suffering or abuse. Talking about the death and abuse creates too much of a welfarist position. Uh-oh. We're pragmatic welfarists here. We're on the same train, but we do go via welfare, I'm afraid. The main thing I'll say about this, by the way, I've got some... where am I going to find those slides? Here it is. A brief aside on welfarism and why it's more based than you might think. Here's I'm going to be covering this up. So here's a supply and demand curve, right? This is, we can imagine this being the supply and demand curve for animal products. So you've got price and quantity. At a very low price, there is a very high quantity demanded, right? It's very cheap, so everyone wants to buy it. And at a very high price, there is a very low quantity demanded, right? It's very expensive, so nobody wants to buy it. So the demand curve goes from top left to bottom right. On the other hand, the supply curve goes from bottom left to top right, because if the price of something's very high, well, hey, you can make a lot of money selling that now, right? So you get a lot of suppliers. The price of something's very low, well, I'm not going to be able to make much money doing this, right? So I'll probably go and find something else. So supply curve goes like this. Now, where that supply and demand curve meet, that tells you the quantity and the price that is called the equilibrium. So this is going to be the price of, let's say, chicken, and this is going to be the quantity of chicken slaughtered, right? So as activists, there's kind of two ways that we can try to interact with this. And what we're normally doing in vegan advocacy is trying to move down the supply curve. Right, so we're trying to reduce the number of people who are willing to buy meat at any price by having people go vegan, for example. And now, at the same price as before, right, same price point, there's actually a lower level of demand because there's people who have dropped out of this market. So normally when we're doing vegan advocacy, we're trying to move down that demand curve. And the reason we're trying to do that, as we'll see, when we move down that curve, we get a new equilibrium, right? So we get a new point where the demand curve intersects the supply curve. It actually makes the price lower, because if more people are demanding a product, it's more expensive. So actually, it does offset the effects a little bit, and there's some studies about that. But this is the important part, right? This axis here is the number of chickens being killed. And this is mainly what we're looking to do, is reduce this Q, right, down to zero eventually. But when we get one person to go vegan, we move down the demand curve, and therefore we moved, Q gets lower, right? So that's what we're normally trying to do with vegan advocacy. With welfarist advocacy, with corporate reforms, policy reforms, welfare labels, welfare standards that now have to be observed in animal production, we're moving up the supply curve. And if you think about it, right, we're saying there's now going to be some sort of rules that you have to observe if you are farming animals. And presumably that imposes some sort of cost, right? Because otherwise people would be doing it already. You don't need to make a rule of it. It's the thing that everybody's doing already. And the effect of that is to push up the supply curve, right? So it's the same quantity now. It's going to be more expensive because you have to have, minimum housing space where you didn't have to have minimum housing space before. Now you've got to meet these minimum housing space requirements. It's actually more expensive to farm chickens. So the supply curve gets pushed up, right? And again, what happens in that case, we get a new equilibrium, new point where the supply curve intersects the demand curve. This actually pushes the price up, unlike the vegan advocacy. But the important part is, again, the quantity goes down. So that's the key thing to know and to remember about welfare improvement campaigns and welfare standards, and actually any kind of standards that might push up the supply curve would have the same effect, right? So you could talk about environmental regulations, or like worker safety regulations, or minimum wage even. These are costs of doing business, right? So if you have welfare rules that have to be met, it's not actually about making a nicer time for the animals which now have a bigger cage than before. Although it is also about that, right? I do think there's also value there. It's mainly about reducing the number of animals being farmed by increasing the cost of farming animals, and therefore reducing the quantity of animals farmed, right? So this is the key thing that I would always want to hammer home for, like, anti-welfarist people. Welfarism saves lives. It reduces the number of animals getting farmed, sorry. Reduce the number of animals getting saved. Reduce the number of animals getting farmed. So, and here's the other key thing, right? It doesn't have to stop there. You don't have to say, right, we got the bigger cages, now we're done. No, we go again, right? We got, just the other day, Subway in North America committed to sourcing 100% cage-free eggs this year. And that was a victory from a campaign that we've been taking part in. And the next day we're, back at it, going after some other company. So it doesn't have to be we're saying that it's acceptable at this certain level or whatever. But when we push up those animal welfare standards, it's actually reducing the quantity of animals getting farmed. So that's a really, really important thing that I would, Bluetooth into every vegan's head if I could. Because opposing welfarism is really counterproductive and, helps the industry ultimately. The two biggest groups who are opposed to animal welfare measures seem to be some vegans and the livestock industry. So again, I think most, vegans have to have this position of well-intentioned, right? And this sort of stuff with the supply and demand curves, this is not obvious. This is not, people aren't born knowing this. So it's totally understandable that anyone might have a different position on this initially. But yeah, there's something, a bit of a hobby horse of mine and something that I'm really seeking to broadcast. Thank you, Kerry. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see. These birds died... Oh, sorry. Harish says the counting animals did an analysis of how many chickens actually suffered to death before making it to the slaughterhouse. These birds die of disease or are killed because they aren't growing quickly enough or have their hearts just give out or their legs break such that they can't make it to water. Harish's calculations show that so many chickens suffer to death that their number dwarfs all the animals killed for fur in shelters and in labs combined. Again, this isn't the number of chickens killed overall, just the number who suffer to death before even getting to slaughter. It's worse today in terms of absolute numbers and percentages. Jeez. We try and mix the hopium with the doomerism here. We do need a bit of hopium from time to time, but God knows there's a lot to be doomer about too. Yeah, true, Axel. There's also the positive impacts of the vegan products that are being bought in stores like Beyond, which also negatively impacts the animal industries. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think those animal product alternatives are so important to support. I eat a ton of that kind of stuff. I'm not going to lie. I have not been a part of the slowdown in the plant-based market. I eat plant-based meat several times a day. Isn't the figure like 5% die before slaughter? I don't know. Let's have a look at this link that he's put. Broiler mortality has increased from 3.7 to 6% over the last 12 years. Yeah, so that was a pretty good guess, Oppenheimer. Bloody hell, that is more than I would have guessed. 6%. So 1 out of 18... Every 18th chicken dying before it even gets to the slaughterhouse. The numbers are incredibly stark. Again, based on research by Harish, Joe Espinosa states that the average American consumes about 2 dozen land animals a year. If one person decided to give up eating birds, just birds, they go from being responsible for the deaths of over 2 dozen land animals in a year to fewer than one. Fewer than one. However, the converse is also true. Anything that might possibly lead someone to start to replace red meat with chickens will lead to a lot more suffering and killing, as noted by Ginny Messina. Bad news for red meat is bad news for chickens. Yeah. So how does this specifically inform our advocacy? Turning to Fuanalytics' study on recidivism, their data shows that people who went veg for health reasons are the ones who go back to eating meat. Oh, this is interesting. Hey, we were talking about this the other day, weren't we? Why do people go back? Motivations for eating a vegetarian diet. Wow, yeah, okay. So Ed mentioned this earlier. That looks like 58%, it's a little bit blurred here. Massively more than any of these others as the main motivations of people who relapse, right? Only 27% of former vegetarians say that they were doing it for animal protection, compared to 68% of current vegetarians. That's pretty... I don't think I've seen this data before. That's pretty interesting. There's kind of an argument for getting people to do it for the right reasons, and that goes to why people maybe precious about the word meaning have a particular meaning, the word vegan having a particular meaning, or making a distinction for people who are plant-based, for example. Yeah, terrible figure they off. Great guess though, great guess. The single biggest difference in motivation between those who quit being vegetarian and those who stay vegetarian is concern for animals, 42% difference. It's backed up by research by the Humane League Labs, which showed that concern for animals is what inspires lasting dietary change. Yeah, we were looking at that in the Vegan Society thing that I wrote as well. The issue that I have with the welfare promotion is that promoting happy slavery, implying that George Washington the next step to Lincoln, which isn't true. Promoting happy slavery. Yeah, I mean, again, I just think if I was a slave, this puts Spice Linnet was saying the other day, right? If I was in that position, sure, I would want some people to be advocating for the end of the institution. But if that didn't seem likely in my lifetime, I guess I'll take the whatever regulations might have been enforced there, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that is going to be your life now, and do you want the worse whip or the better whip or whatever? I don't know what such regulations would be. I mean, again, it's not to say that that would be acceptable. But if that's going to be your life, like, I guess give me the slightly better whip. Pretty grim conclusion, I'm not going to lie to you, but yeah. Would you say you're a strict hedonistic utilitarian, or is that primarily how you think? I think I might be with respect to animals, or at least mostly. I mean, I was listening back to my conversation with Has Vegan, and I thought that was quite interesting when we were talking about animal autonomy and pets autonomy, and should you have your dog neutered and stuff like that. And he says, you know, he gets that well, I really looked into this with my dog, right? There's a couple of things about it can lower disease and stuff. I'm like, oh, well, who knows? The main arguments for it from a vegan's perspective is that you're preventing, obviously, future animals being born that you don't know how they're going to be able to, you know, what their life's going to be like, and it's going to be creating more dogs that need to be taken care of, and people are, you know, some of them end up in shelters or whatever else. And the argument against it is like a autonomy argument. I do feel quite strongly with my dog, if I gave him autonomy, he would kill himself. Well, since I've thought that, I'm like, damn, that's pretty weird, because wild animals seem to know how to navigate the world. But my dog, if he could do what he wanted, would run in front of buses and start fights with much bigger dogs. And literally, if I wasn't pulling him in the other direction, he would get right under a bus. So I don't, giving him autonomy would not be in his best interests from a hedonistic utilitarian perspective. This is backed up by research from the Humane League Labs, which shows that concern for animals is what inspires lasting dietary change. So clearly we need to keep animals at the centre of our efforts to help animals. Research has told us more about how we can refine our message in such a way as to get the most useful change for animals in the real world. The Humane League Lab specifically pointed out the way we should not focus on dairy when initially dealing with the general public, not only because of the numbers, because it's the last thing that people think they can give up. Yeah, that's I've said this before. There's it's both the lowest suffering per unit of product, and there's numbers on that, right, where chicken and eggs come out the worst, as he says. And also, yeah, cheese. It's always cheese, isn't it? That's why people can't go vegan. It's cheese. We know that. But yeah, that's borne out in survey data as well, where it's you know, ranked as the hardest thing to give up is dairy. So yeah, I would say not the most compelling thing to put at the front of your campaign or your asks. Yeah, I appreciate that, Axel. I think that is what most welfarists are ultimately saying, to be fair. We're doing this ban cages in UK farming, this mass lobby day. And it's going to be such a win for animals if it goes through. It's going to really push up that supply curve, get fewer animals farmed, get it more expensive to farm animals. And, for, you know, like I said, I do think it's worth something that now they're in a big cage, right? Even still, if it's not the end point. And I have to say, in organising that, it is those kind of divisions, or I would think of it as purity, although I don't mean to say that disparagingly, become kind of evident because there's all sorts of groups who are just not interested in taking part in that. Like the Vegan Society, like there's a bunch of animal organisations who are, and there's a bunch of NGOs who are part of organising the event. But the Vegan Society, for example, is not, because it's not vegan still, right? If you have, like, well, they don't do welfarist things sort of as policy. And it's interesting, there is, you know, a market for non-profits, just like there's a market for products. And I suppose as long as there are some number of donors for whom the important thing is purely vegan stuff and no endorsement of welfarism, then there will be organisations to take their donations and act on their behalf, right? So perhaps it's inevitable that there would be such organisations as long as the ideas are prevalent. Rather, we should focus on chickens, which people can give up and actually makes a significant difference in terms of the number of animals suffering. Of course, this is absolutely not meant to dismiss or downplay the suffering of dairy cows and calves. Rather, this is simply a discussion of how best we can promote a message that will have the biggest impact in actually reducing suffering. This relates to research I was part of in 2014 at the University of Arizona. One of the many interesting takeaways from those 4 studies was that each one of them found that a general public thinks veganism is impossible, and vegans are, to put it kindly, annoying. This obviously doesn't matter if we only want to promote veganism regardless of the consequences, but if we actually want to make a difference and reduce the amount of suffering in the world, we should take note of this. Similarly, many people quit being vegetarian because they found it too hard to live up to the demand for purity. Again, if we only care about the purity of those who call themselves vegan, then the fact that we're driving people away is irrelevant. But if we actually want to reduce suffering, we should do everything possible to both embrace and encourage everyone. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think it's a very unhelpful mindset to... People I've spoken to who have stopped being vegetarian or vegan often seem to relate it to one event where they're like, oh, I ate meat on this, you know, either time where I was really tempted or time where I did it by accident sometimes, and then that was it, and then I thought, and then it's over, I'm not a vegetarian anymore. Like, that's not a very helpful mindset to make it so binary. You could just say, oh, well, that was a slip up, but back to, right, try and be better. So that's kind of for each person to view for themselves, I suppose. But I think certainly as vegan activists and advocates for animals, we shouldn't be enforcing or kind of furthering that perspective in people who, they could have been just a slipped up once person and now they're going to be an ex-vegan instead. Not ideal, right? Instead of reinforcing people's stereotypes and trying to build the smallest, angriest, most exclusive club in the world. Yeah, this is pretty much a recurring theme from a lot of the stuff that we read. The upside is that there is a great deal of opportunity out there. A number of studies, including the University of Arizona study, have discovered a shocking willingness among the general population to reduce meat consumption. And if we are really going to help animals rather than just police our club, we can reach these members of the general public with an honest, realistic message that actually has a profound impact for animals, reducing and eliminating chickens from our diet. How can we best do this? The 3 resources or events were most influential in leading respondents to initially reduce or eliminate animal product consumption. Look at that, documentaries top again. Documentaries 43%, they're also the most common one in this VOMAD survey. Which is... no, it's not that. There you go. Most common one, documentaries. Shout out to the documentary makers then. They're really driving this. Then other... then books, then thought of myself, then conversation, then interaction with the companion animal. What do we got to go over here? Conversation, video on the internet, post on social media. Well, books used to be more common. It's kind of alarming, isn't it? It's a little bit of a time capsule. This was 10 years ago. Social media is going to be way down here at 8%. That's actually bloody interesting, isn't it? This is 2015, did he say? Or 2014? Social media was only 8% of people's top 3. And then in 2019, posts on social media were 13%. And this is only counting the number ones, right? So these add to 100%. These ones don't add to 100% because they could choose more than one. But even so, that's massive growth in the number of people saying that social media was what influenced them. Never compared these two things before. And look, online video, 16%. That's also less than we've got in the more recent data. Books, though, this is the most concerning one. Books used to be 38%. And here they're too small a sliver to be labelled. Oh, man. Cheers, Axel. I appreciate you joining. And then what's this? Watch 3 events most influential and leading respondents to initially. Isn't this the same? Oh, okay. So this is for vegans and vegetarians. This is for semi-vegetarians. Documentaries top again. Other, conversation, books. Thought of myself. So the top 5 are the same, just in a slightly different order. But documentaries top for both. So I think that's a really good ask. If you're the AV activist and someone doesn't commit to going vegan right now, or your friend who's interested in it, or whatever it is, like getting them to watch a documentary is a really good thing to do. It's the most common cause of people's inspiration for going vegan, right? Don't ask someone to read a book. That's too high. People have asked me to read books. I'm never going to do that. You got to make it kind of... There's a balance between something maximally engaging and likely to change their mind versus something that they are likely to engage with. I mean, even if you say, like, watch this half-an-hour documentary is going to be more likely than watch this 2-hour documentary. So that's something to bear in mind as well. One thing I've recommended before is the Kurzgesagt videos about meat. They're very much made for normies. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, animated, right? So nothing gruesome. They're very non-offensive. And they're very compelling as well. The comments on them, again, it's a not vegan channel, right? It's like normie channel. But the comments on them are all a bunch of normies basically saying, like, yeah, there's a good idea, we should eat less meat. People watching Dominion during Discord outreach can be very effective getting people over the line. Yeah, I mean, I had an interaction with a kid on that Discord server week, the vegan Discord server where you do like random activism on Omegle or whatever it is. And he was kind of trolling until I started playing the video. You know, they have set up so that you can play the factory farming video. And as soon as he saw that, he's changed his tune and said, okay, well, this is actually... when you're looking at a video of it happening, it's very difficult to defend, eh? Unless your name's Paul Wood. Of the advocacy tools available to us, movies, conversations, websites, and online video have proven to be the most impactful. Now, I know this is a lot to take in only a few minutes, but it is very encouraging to realize we have so much information available to us, such that we know what positive, constructive steps we can take to help change the world for animals. A quick note as to why this matters. For us here, we can debate and argue, philosophize and condemn. We're all relatively safe and well off, enjoying our sparring and our agreements, our discussion about who's attacking whom on Facebook, how angry we are about the latest tweet, how delicious the new vegan product is. On the other hand, it is a cliche, of course, to say that it is a matter of gravest consequence for animals. Just because it is a cliche doesn't mean it isn't true. Finally, as much as I would like to think otherwise, we currently can't do everything. We do not have infinite time or infinite resources, but we have to realize that when we choose to do one thing, we are choosing not to do another. We need to choose wisely. We are the animal's voice. We are their hope. Yeah, this is a really good point. Opportunity cost. this is why it's important to prioritize, like, for example, like the person who is actually open to going vegan rather than someone who's not. We can each strive to make choices that have the and more effective charities over less effective charities, right? We can each strive to make choices that have the greatest possible impact, that reduce the most suffering, regardless of labels and definitions, regardless of how it makes us look or feel, regardless of popularity. We can make a real difference. We can change the world. Here's how. Oh my goodness. What we got here? Oh, this is One Step for Animals. So this is the this campaign is basically asking people not to eat chicken. And it is going to be quite high expected value for expected utility, right, for animals. Look at that, they're using a lot of the same graph. This might actually be made by Matt Ball, hey? So look at the About page, team. And Green. EK Green. Matthew Ball, yeah, there he is. Carrie Neinstedt. And a bunch of other people. Oh, there's Peter Singer. Cool, cool. All right, well, I enjoyed that. Matthew Ball, Matt Ball. We'll probably read some more of these guys' articles, this guy's articles in the future. By the way, he has written one of the best vegan books, which is now kind of old, but I really, really liked it. I can't remember what it's called. Matt Ball, Bruce Friedrich. Book. Animal Activist Handbook. Yeah, 2009. So it stood the test of time, though. I listened to this on Audible, I think last year, and found myself nodding along and agreeing with so much of what's been said. I mean, I think with a lot of these characters, right, Matt Ball, Tobias Linnert, we have read, we're very much the same sort of brand of pragmatist, first and foremost, right? I think I'm more a pragmatist than I am a utilitarian. I think, right, just as opposed to being, well, I don't want to say opposed to being principled, but in some instances, right, yeah, that's what pragmatism is. Getting stuff done rather than sort of theorizing about perfection. By the way, this thing about the meat smuggling seems like it's going to be a really good thing to share on socials. So why don't we do that quickly? And then we'll watch a video. We'll watch, here's me in my vegan tank top. There's another one, I think. There's me in my edgy veggie tank top. I bet they've sold out of Edgegan Vegan. Right, let's post this up. I'll put the link in chat as well if anyone else wants to do a bit of share more this evening. And let's find a good quote from this as well. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's do the bit about serious health risks. Should we do the picking a suitcase bit as well? Yeah, let's do that. So we can put 2 bits of this quote. Add me up on Facebook and LinkedIn and all the other platforms so that you can retweet or whatever this stuff if you'd like to. Right, I think that'll do. We'll post that on Facebook and we'll bang it on LinkedIn quickly as well. Just like to share stuff like this regularly, a kind of variety of topics. This one's mostly a public health thing, but try and do something like once a week that's just going to encourage people away from animal products. And I think this idea of illegally smuggled meat being in the UK and us not really knowing the extent of it or being able to trace it properly is a pretty, like I say, that would put me off eating meat if I was a meat eater. So yeah, give that a share. Put the link in chat there so we can get that around. Right, should we watch some more from Oliver Lewis? We watched this guy the other day and I enjoyed it. Here he is at the vegan campout, calling out passive vegans. So this is vegan versus vegan, vegan on vegan crime. Let's take a look. It's going to be an argument for activism as obligatory, which I think is based.
You are cows. Why? That's not a good thing.
You're a hypocrite.
Yes, of course. Because you said animals should be respected, but you're not respecting animals. Would you say it's okay not to be vegan?
I don't know.
Please, speak up for them. It's not so hard.
But why are you not speaking up for every other problem in the world?
Okay, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm speaking here for the animals, of course, on the Vegan Campout Festival. We have actually an issue in the vegan movement. You know what it is?
The misunderstanding of veganism?
Yeah, that's the first issue. We actually have two. So, misunderstanding of veganism. You know the original definition, right?
I do, that humans should live without exploiting other animals.
Yes. Actually, none of the people I talked to actually knew the original definition, but they were open to listen to it and they understood that it is about only the victims of this and the animals, of course, the other animals. And the second issue is?
The lack of activism.
Yes, perfect. Like, we need people to actually speak up for the animals. What made you become vegan?
Health reasons. My doctor told me I had to change my diet drastically.
Are you vegan?
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. So what made you become vegan?
There's a film called Forks Over Knives. I guess took elements from it, including health benefits.
There's the documentaries, right? Yeah, my PC is struggling a bit. Let me know if I am unacceptably lag. I've turned down the quality on this video, which I hope is going to help. I do have a new computer on the way.
But also, I guess, impact on environment, impact on animals, everything else, right?
So you're vegan, obviously?
Yes.
Yeah. What made you become vegan?
I always connected with animals more than I did people. So
Again?
I always connected with animals more than I do people. So I always thought we are all here.
Am I good? Am I live right now? Am I on? I don't know if I've dropped off. Someone let me know in chat. Oh, it's good? Alright, good.
On the same planet, and it's their home too. So I just think we should treat them the way that we do.
Yeah, they don't live on this planet for us. They live here with us, right?
Yes, 100%. I agree.
Are you vegan?
I'm not vegan, no.
Okay. So what made you come here?
Well, there was a scheme going on. It was like a bring a non-vegan friend to camp out for free. So my mate Henry over there, he managed to get a ticket for me, and I came along because why not? For the vibes, and it's going good so far. Yeah, enjoying myself.
Do you agree that animals should be respected?
I do agree. I do agree indeed. Animals should be respected.
Can you truly respect animals if you still exploit them for flesh, eggs, milk, or other purposes? So, are you vegan?
Yeah.
Yes. What
Found one non-vegan at the vegan campout.
made you become a vegan?
Well, I made her become a vegan. I went vegan almost 7 years ago when I was 15. I read an essay that my friend wrote in school, and I was like, I'll go vegan.
Wow, that's pretty based. Cool to be that friend, eh? That must be in the other category of what first inspired you to go vegan. Imagine being the person who wrote that essay. That's awesome.
And I think it's one of those things that it almost needed that catalyst to push me over the edge, because there's signs there, right, where I'm going, I don't feel okay eating meat. Like, I don't like hurting animals and things like that. And society and supermarkets make it very convenient to do that, but it didn't feel right for me. And I think then I watched Forks Over Knives, and it just gave me that little final push that said, actually, why don't you turn vegan? So
you're vegan?
Yeah.
Yeah. What made you become a vegan?
I realized I was a hypocrite. Yeah, a big hypocrite.
Because probably you said animals should be respected, but your actions.
The whole story is like my brother went plant-based 10 years ago, okay? And very shortly after that, he got into the ethics and he became vegan. And it took me, this is my twin brother, okay? It took me maybe 3 years of me probably being obnoxious to him. And after like 3 years of argumenting and realizing I'm a big hypocrite, I also made a connection and went vegan.
I have to say, if this, there's something about like this looking blokes, right? If some bloke who looked like this was being obnoxious and anti-vegan, that is somebody that I would not prioritize interacting with further, right? But evidently, sometimes they do come around eventually.
So a lot of vegans already
Have a good one, Kerry. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
know what it means to be vegan in practice. Like do not consume animal products, like also no leather, do not go into zoos, circuses and stuff. But most of the people actually don't know the original definition. Do you know it?
Well, the original definition of vegan?
Yeah.
No, I feel like I'd make it up and you'd tell me it was wrong. So yeah, what is it? What is it?
Already say it. Like it's on my back.
Principle.
It's the ethical principle that humans should live without exploiting other animals. Like acknowledging that the human is an animal, but there are other animals that the human basically views as an object. And I think it's really important to understand the true definition, because it is not like a lot of people think about health or about the environment, because that's basically just making about yourself again. But here it is about the victim, about the animal. And the problem is not only like all the practices of where they do the killing, for example, where a lot of people focus on. It is the essential mindset of the human that they view animals as lesser, as products, as commodities.
For us.
As they live here on this planet for us and not with us. And I think that is really important to understand in order to push this justice movement forward. Do you actually know the original definition of veganism?
Glad to know you got some sleep then.
Yeah, I think it's living on a plant-based diet, just totally plant.
He's not gonna like that, is he?
That's actually a misconception, because it is not about the diet. It's an ethical principle that humans should live without exploiting other animals. You can see it here on my back. So it's not really about you or what you seem to feel healthy. It is about the victims, the animals.
I personally, depending on how the way we get our food, we can exploit them. We can also not exploit them. It is also.
But is it respect?
In some circumstances, it's respect. That animals, some places it served a purpose. It's somewhat it's like been obviously it's done for the whole, like how many minutes it's been alive for. We've as a human like race, we've done that for that many years. It's passed on throughout however long we've been alive. So I personally.
I kind of don't quite want to think about this one, because this is the non-vegan friend who's been brought along by his vegan pal. You don't want to scare these people off, but also you do want to encourage them to actually think about it in a bit more detail. I suppose that's the point of these kind of events. He's sort of there, but also giving quite level 1 takes here.
I know it has been
true Oppenheimer
going on for a long time. But if you were now in the position of the
yes, very true, Tone. We watched Paul Bashir giving the briefing earlier, and Oliver's doing it exactly right.
Animal, I would say you are here for my use. I'm gonna take away your milk, take away your babies, and if I don't need you anymore, I'm going to kill you. Is that ever respect? This mentality?
Well, if you put it that way, obviously not going to be respect.
No. So, do you actually know the original definition from 1951 of veganism?
Freedom and hold
maybe not.
So the turn around. It's the ethical principle that humans should live without exploiting other animals. So the focus is. Thank you. So the focus is on the exploitation that animals, like you said already, like they are not
shuffling off camera there. The girl might realise they were singing over. So embarrassing.
They are not objects. They are here on this planet with us and shouldn't be our production units. They shouldn't be here for our use, right? And the consequence of that is, of course, do not use them for as production units for food, clothing, so on and so on. But a lot of people actually don't know the original definition of veganism. Do you know it?
To do as least harm as possible.
Yeah.
The original definition is not about harm. Like, for example, if you drive with your car and you, for example, hit some insects, you inflict harm, but you're not.
Nice tone. It's evidently been iterated and they've worked out the best way. We were listening earlier about the 3 strikes and you're out and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's cool to have iterated something that works most effectively, right?
Not essentially exploiting an animal, making them a product. So the definition from 1951 was, veganism is the ethical principle that humans should live without exploiting
Great arms again, this guy. I mean, he can wear the vegan vests for sure.
Other animals. So main word here, exploitation. Viewing animals as a product, as a commodity. And that this mindset, where it starts, is basically wrong to view animals as living here for our purposes. Instead, acknowledging that they live here with us on their own reasons, right?
Yeah.
What you then did was change your diet to a plant-based one, which can be healthier in some occasions, but you probably agree that animals should be respected, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So being vegan is not only the diet, it's also about using animals for different purposes, like for clothing, for entertainment and other stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Are you doing that or are you also against that?
Well, put it this way, I don't have anything leather in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I really can't. Just, yeah, I can't. And as
And
far
also zoos, circuses or stuff, you also are not pro.
the last circus I went to only had humans in it. Acrobats, motorcyclists.
And they can consent to that. Animals can't. Most of the time they are just put in this situation, like most of the time ripped from their families to just be an entertainment object for the human.
With this kind of thing, I'm always thinking about this graph of the number of animals, right? It's like, I don't know where circus animals would come on this, but again, I'm not opposed to what he's saying, right? It's, yes, we're against the labs and the clothing as well, but it's really is this slither. Seems a little bit weird to have clothing separate from farm, by the way, because presumably the clothing is coming from farm. This is, should say food, I suppose.
And that's injustice, right? Would you say it's okay not to be vegan?
No.
I don't know.
No, look, it's a tough one, right? I think because I'm obviously a firm believer of people have the kind of right to make their own choices.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think when it comes to not being vegan, the choice feels, I don't know, it just feels very unethical in a lot of ways.
Where does the freedom of someone's own choices end?
Exactly, 100%. And when does it begin?
I would put it in the context. If you ask anybody, is it okay for a human to kill another human?
Yes.
Their innate response should be, no, it's not. So why does it translate for anything else living that's okay?
That's why I'm asking this question. It is not about personal choice if you exploit someone else for it. Do you think it's okay not to be vegan?
I think when it comes to practicality for a lot of people, I know that they can't. In a very, very fast modern world, convenience is very high on the list. So I understand why people can't fully go vegan, and plus veganism is a movement, it's not a diet. So like with plant-based diet, I would say a mostly plant-based diet is 100% doable. It's just, I think it's a slow process. And it's gonna take a long time for people.
But in general, is it okay if someone is not vegan?
Is it okay if someone's not vegan? It depends on the circumstances, I think.
Like, if you were the victim now, if you were the cow, like you were wearing this costume, would you find it acceptable?
If you want me, like me personally, if I would go vegan 100%. But I know there are several people in my life that aren't vegan. 100%, I would love them to be vegan.
Is she saying she's not vegan?
Yeah, it's like, that's no word about it. I would love it.
No, I think she is.
But there's certain things in their life holding them back, like time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, but
yeah.
if you were the victim now in this situation, like the cow that they are exploiting,
Yeah.
would you find any excuse they are giving you acceptable as a reason to still exploit you and kill you, take away your children?
No, it's not acceptable.
That's what I mean.
The only reason why I say it is because I feel like human relationships, if we were to completely cut everyone out, if they weren't vegan, let's say, not be friends with them because it's not acceptable what they eat, we would lose connection. With
That's not what I'm asking. The question was truly like, is it okay what they're doing? And obviously it isn't
no,
from the
no.
victim's perspective.
No.
Right. Do you think it's okay not to be vegan?
No.
No.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, because if you were the victim, you don't want to be subjugated to exploitation.
I have a lot of respect for this guy because he's evidently someone who was argued into it and did it under some duress. Like, not under duress, but, you know, had a strong feeling that they didn't want to go vegan, right? And he just did it anyway. And now here he is saying, no, it's not acceptable to not do it. So, I mean, he obviously got there via the right means, and I would have a good bet on this person sticking with it, right? I really enjoyed this graph about the the people who stick with it or not. Former vegetarians or vegans, 58% said health was the main motivation, only 27% said animals. And the biggest difference from current vegetarians and vegans versus former is caring about animals. Genuinely, although I work on this and look at these kind of studies and graphs and so on, I have learned a hell of a lot from doing this stream, just by preparing like a few things to read, a couple of videos to watch. I'm reading news articles, I'm reading stuff that I've always been aware of, like these different Substack accounts and so on, but I've just never made the time to read them. And there's been a hell of a lot of valuable stuff in here, even in the couple of weeks that I've been doing the live streaming. So yeah, this has been really a learning journey for me, which I love. I really want to keep on doing this, yeah.
Would you say it's okay not to be vegan?
I don't know. Some people have different viewpoints on this. Some people say absolutely not, you're out of your mind. And others say, well, go for it.
Okay.
You know, plants are everything.
Yeah, but what if you were the victim, the animal? Would you find it acceptable if someone thinks it's okay to exploit you?
No.
No. So it is never acceptable. If you were the victim, you don't want to be exploited. You don't want to be used for any purpose. You just want to be free, right? So you probably agree on that. So knowing what vegan now means, do you agree that we as vegans should actively defend animals?
Yeah.
Yeah. How could you do that?
Give more, share more, do more. Google Vegan 2.0.
Small things really to begin with. I mean, I've actually signed up a couple of times to end factory farming on a couple of species of animals, so keep going.
Yeah.
And I sponsor animals too.
Huh? Again?
I've sponsored animals too, you know,
okay.
wild ones.
Do you agree that we as vegans
So I just swerved the wild animal question, probably wise.
should actively defend animals?
Yeah. I believe.
But that wasn't a bad answer, hey? I mean, sponsoring wild animals, probably not the most effective way. I mean, the sponsor an animal thing is just a form of donation, right? Everyone's getting the picture of the same polar bear, sorry to break it to you. I do think there's a case for trying to reduce wild animal suffering. Hey, I guess that's something where the utilitarian versus exploitation perspective comes into it. Hey, if you are only or primarily thinking about it in terms of exploitation, you maybe say, well, leave the wild animals up to it, right? I do think, from my perspective, there's a case to care about wild animal suffering. You know, we were speaking about this before. It might not be that tractable. It's difficult to know what you can actually do to that end. Sounds like at the moment it's mostly research we gave to the Wild Animal Institute as part of Vegan 2.0. But that'll be one place where the exploitation difference comes in, hey? Yeah, Oppenheimer, that must have been such a disappointment. I wonder how many people do that.
believe that even
Oh, we just get pictures of the polar bear. Come on.
if there's not much you can do, you should always tell people what you do and why.
Yeah, the accountability is missing. Like people run through this society all the time. They essentially exploit animals, and no one is really holding them accountable for the injustice they are.
Which, by the way, I really liked this earlier when Paul Bashir was talking about accountability as the sort of missing ingredient. That does resonate with me, and that is really what I think of when we're doing the Fast Action Network and doing our institutional and corporate campaigns, right? We're holding them accountable, and it's not a given that will happen. It could easily be the case that a company says, hey, we'll do cage-free eggs, and then they just never fucking do it, and no one holds them accountable. That could happen. And in fact, it does happen. Unless people like us are logging onto Fast Action Network and posting on social media and emailing the executives and everything else, right? I wonder if there could... Oh, well, no, I don't wonder. There certainly could be institutional campaigns which are not necessarily welfareist. We were looking at this chart earlier of, in defense of welfareism, where usually we're trying to push down the demand curve, and that reduces the quantity of animals being farmed. But in the case of welfare reforms, we're actually pushing up the supply curve, and that also reduces the quantity of animals being farmed. Right, so this is my defense of welfareism for vegans who don't fuck with it, as the kids say. It will, in fact, reduce the number of animals being farmed, right? But given that a lot of vegans will not get on board with welfareist things, there's certainly institutional things that you could do, like asking institutions to have plant-based defaults, for example, that is going to be more directly, on the demand side. There's something to think about.
Doing. So we need to be the ones. We vegans are the only hope for these animals to actually tell them once in their lifetime that it's not okay what they're doing. So we need to actually speak up for them. And
it's really funny in work. Sometimes somebody will offer something and he'll say, I don't want any of your death sandwich.
Yeah,
it's like
100%. That is part of it. But that is part of it. Like not accepting it, not just being silent about it. And so do you agree that we as vegans should actively defend animals?
Yeah.
I agree with what he's saying here. The thing I like about Vegan 2.0 is that you can do this in reliable and I think reliable and repeatable is the main things I want to say here. A reliable way, right? I mean, saying like speak up when people are eating meat or whatever, like, great if you do that. It's often not like socially convenient, basically, right? Now, Oliver wouldn't accept that, of course. Where was I going? Where was I going with this? So if you, I know. So if you commit to doing, like, posting on your social media once a week, right? We just shared this thing about illegally imported meat and how it might have all sorts of contamination. I know that I'm going to post something like that once a week, and having an ambient level of influence on people, even if I am not able to chase down every opportunity to reprimand someone IRL, right? I know that I'm putting my views out there, and I know that when I am with people IRL, often they do know what I actually think of this, and I don't need to say anything in the moment. What I'll do is just not offer them reassurance, basically, right? Don't be the person who's saying, oh, it's actually okay in your case. You can just say nothing, right? And if you are active on social media and posting about these kind of things, people are going to know what you think. And if they've said something that's meant to elicit a response from you and you don't really respond, I think that's often quite clear that you've not appreciated what they said, or you don't agree with what they said, right? A lot of vegans are not going to feel that comfortable having constant confrontations, right? It's just not practical in many cases. But if you're broadcasting your views on your social media, you know, no one has any doubts about it, and you can say, see here for my views on this issue. I think it's the reliability, really. Like, you know, in my normal life, I can go weeks without having a situation where I would be in a position to say something, someone eating meat or whatever. So yeah, reliably posting that on socials, I think, is a good way to ensure that you're doing that on a consistent basis.
How would you want to be defended if you were the cow, the animal?
Through law, I think.
And how do we get to that? How can you participate into that?
Protests, signing petitions, doing online.
UK Mass Labby Day on the 21st of October in London. We've got 12 people here, by the way, guys. Give us a like on the stream if you're here. And if you are in the UK, go and head over to this page where you can email your MP and invite them to have a meeting with you about banning cages on the 21st of October in Westminster. I'll be there with some of my team. I have a meeting with my MP booked in. My MP's a vegan, so she's pretty based. But yeah, if you're anywhere in the UK, and it stresses here as well, you can take part. You are allowed to take part if you are resident in the UK, even if you can't vote. So if you're an international student or something like that, you can still request a meeting with your MP. So we're doing a mass lobby day. We're going to try and get them all to turn up on the same day and have, you know, several MPs having meeting with constituents and hearing the same message that we need to get rid of cages in British animal farming. So go sign up. I put the link in chat, and yeah, this will be something that we can do to move towards laws to protect animals.
Activism seems to be a massive.
Are you already doing something like that?
I tried it. I tried it earlier, earlier on, in last few months, because I felt like I've been vegan for about 10 years, but I've not been like a proper activist, and I thought I need to do a bit more. And I did it, and I was like, sometimes the comments from people.
Yeah.
Sometimes I worry for the human race.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you mean. You said in the beginning also you connect more to animals than to humans, and there are a lot of unreachable people around. But there's actually approaches where we focus on the reachable people, where we focus on those who are listening, who are open to listen to our message. And I think we get the tools. So we are organization, street outreach organization, Anonymous for the Voices. You might have heard of it, with the mask and the screens. So this is the hook where we get people interested into watching the footage, but our actually core of activism is the communication, like providing you, for example, with the right tools and skills to tell people the truth, not triggering their defenses, but still being firm and direct about representing the victim. And I think this is so desperately needed in this movement to not only, I like it, it's a party, we have fun, we have some nice vegan food, but considering what is happening right now for the animals, we need to be more outspoken about this, right?
Oh yeah, no, I do think we need to be more outspoken about it. 100%.
So you can instantly, if you understand there's an injustice happening.
It's got to be easier to get vegans to become activists than to get non-vegans to become vegans, right? Because they're already bought into all of the reasons for doing so, for the most part. Like, most of these people are not taking that much persuasion to get to the position that, yes, you should be doing some activism. And that's kind of what I'm doing with Vegan 2.0. Like, the theory of change is to get vegans to be more active in doing effective things that are going to help animals. I just think it's so much more tractable than... I mean, you see the street interviews that they do normally, not in the vegan camp out. You do reach some people, you don't reach a lot of people. But I feel like so many vegans, I feel, are just kind of like waiting to, or not waiting, they just don't really know or understand like how much they can do to help animals with so little effort. Like I always say, I think the value for money in giving to effective vegan charities is immense. And the return on efforts like Fast Action Network and sharing things on social media is also pretty immense. There's such low effort things that can yield to such great results for animals. And I think that, oftentimes vegans can think that activism is only, going to the march or going to vigils or doing AVA or whatever it may be. It's, or doing AV, sorry. There are much lower bars to get over to do effective things to help a lot of animals. And I really want more vegans to know that. Search for Vegan 2.0 if you haven't already seen that series. Yeah, you guys know where to find that on the playlist on my channel. Really, really simple, easy things to do. Charitable donations, posting on social media, doing Fast Action Network. And each person who does that series saves over 1,200 animals. So get on it, spread it around. Playlist is called Let's Go Vegan 2.0.
You can actually do something about it right now, and since the animals can't speak for themselves in this society, the animals can't defend themselves, who will do it? Like, who is their only hope?
Yeah, it's us. That's our job. And we owe it to them.
Yeah. But I personally find majority of the people the majority of the ways we do get our food from isn't respectful, but
that's a question. Even if you're on the biggest farm, you got the best food on the planet, is it respect to see you, to view you as a product, as a production unit?
No, I guess not. I guess not. Yeah.
So, and that is the core of veganism. Basically, veganism is the principle that humans should live without exploiting animals, not viewing them as objects, not viewing them as production units for your own needs.
I've always thought on this. It struck me that I'm thinking about this like utilitarian angle, which seems to get me in a lot of hot water in vegan issues. I've always thought on this, like, it doesn't necessarily matter from the animal's perspective, this next level of, like, I'm owned and that's disrespectful. They don't have a concept of that necessarily. But I think the problem with the ownership mindset, if you want to put it like that, is that it does tend towards abuse, and I can do whatever I want to, actually. And so it will tend to lower utility. So I guess there's quite a lot of convergence on that sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I personally don't, but yeah.
Yeah, you said in the beginning they should be respected.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you clearly are in a contradiction, right?
I wouldn't say so. I respect an animal for what they do, for what they provide for me. That's how I respect an animal.
That's not respect.
That's, well, I won't take his line.
If you exploit them.
I'm not exploiting the animal.
Then you're lying to yourself.
Okay.
That's not a good thing.
Oh, I guess not. Well, that's just my personal views, personally. I
and
I should be called a hypocrite.
Of course, because your personal view means that other animals has to be exploited and killed for you. That's not a good thing. Bye.
That I'm vegan myself, but yeah. I would still class myself.
That's the accountability piece, hey. Yeah, I feel like if someone had that interaction with me, some people do just need to be told. And I don't know, I feel like that kid kind of understood it already. He was there with his vegan friend. He was the only non-vegan that he seems to have come across in this video.
As a hypocrite, I only go as far as I want to.
Yeah, you already.
Is this guy another non-vegan?
And killed for you. That's not a good.
Myself as a hypocrite, I only go as far as I want to.
Yeah, you already talk about this again, but.
No, but I'm making the point that saying that vegan is this one solution,
for one problem,
so that everyone who doesn't do it is they're doing the wrong thing. I think, well, we're all doing the wrong thing. Do you know where that mic's? I know this is deflecting, but I'm a vegan myself, and I'm speaking about how I.
Oh, based is vegan, okay, but he's an apologist vegan.
I think I'm a hypocrite. Do you know where this mic's from? Do you know where you?
Do you have a better solution right now? No, I have a better solution for this hypocrite to be vegan. You can go up to him, tell him you.
Maybe this is his vegan mate that he came with, huh?
You just admitted that animals should be respected. Yeah, you are not respecting animals with the way
I think it is. I think this is his mate.
You're living right now. You can have a solution for this by being vegan right now. And if you were the victim here, you don't want to be in this position, and the only thing you would demand of others would be to live vegan and speak up for your rights to not be exploited. Can you do that? What I mean is actually that we can use our voice, because animals don't have a voice here in our society. They are basically, their only hope is other vegans who speak up for them, right? So I think it's absolutely necessary that we as vegans unite and speak up for the animals. And the easiest way to do that would be to be active in a vegan activism group. So we are actually from Anonymous for the Voices. You can see how we approach this activism and how we tell people that they need to be vegan in the most confrontational but also productive way. Are you interested?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were the animal.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about that tone. I mean, I think you're probably right. It probably is kind of pointless by that point. In some ways, I always think of my pal who was looking for a signal that we were taking it as seriously as the issue was grave, that I was, as I was saying, the issue was grave, if that made sense. And when we are not reacting with a bit of vigour, we're kind of sending the message like, oh, it's not really that important, or it doesn't matter that much, or it's kind of fine what you do anyway. So I think, I don't know, I don't mind that kind of like a bit of elbows when it comes to it.
In this position, how would you want to be defended? Do we have any idea how to do it?
I would like definitely to try and be taken out of the situation I've been put in, because that's not somewhere that they've chosen to be.
Yes, do you know a way how you can get active? Or if you're not active already?
Search Vegan 2.0 on Google. Get the highest impact to lowest effort returns.
Supporting those who are brave enough to go out and do what free animals and do what they do.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
I make a suggestion. Otherwise,
mine's from a sort of a knowledge base, so
Yes.
I'll try and always. A lot of people will go, well, why are you a vegan? And I'll try and spend time to change their perception on, I think knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a perception thing.
I think a combination of knowledge, like teaching them, but also accountability. Not letting them off the hook when they, really telling them they are hypocrites. Really, just once in their lifetime, be the one voice that is strictly speaking for their victims. Yeah. We are from AV.
It's tough to do, particularly people you know, to actually fall out with them. Basically, I don't know. There's a level of commitment to be doing that to people in your own life and holding them accountable to such an extent that you're going to be I mean, it's going to be uncomfortable, isn't it? It's very easier to do with strangers, frankly.
I would give you this card. So there are actually a lot of groups, chapters in the UK, but also in other countries all around the world, even in Africa.
Yeah, I do.
You know Anonymous for the Voiceless?
I think so. Are you in Glasgow?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, I'm part of them also, because I like to really confront people with the truth about animal exploitation, calling them out, because in the whole world they get the information somehow. A vegan in their friend group will at least tell them what is going on.
They know what it is.
But they need to be held accountable for what they're doing. Someone in their life needs to say the truth and tell them they are hypocrites. If they say they should respect animals, that animals should be respected, but they're not doing it.
There's definitely something different about people who choose to go vegan, though, isn't there? We're different.
Yeah, we're
different.
I would say
We're people, non-conformists who don't care what everybody else thinks, and who are happy to do something, and everybody say, "What the hell are you doing?" So we're different, aren't we? Yeah. So it makes it the people who aren't doing it, and maybe they're just not ready. It's really hard.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with that, Oppenheimer. It's like an instrumentalist kind of getting from rights to utility or something. But yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying.
You know?
And that's the thing. Like, in order to create change in a society, we need a certain amount of people with strong character to make it change. So this is now, for example, but it is not creating a change. It's everybody who is not doing it anymore, just leaves it for themselves. It is only creating change if we actively engage with others. And that's the thing. We can't convince anybody. Like, we don't even need to. If they follow the crowd now, if vegans get in the majority, they will follow the crowd anyways. So we need to focus on the reachable people.
Yeah, this is absolutely right. And the same as what Paul was saying earlier, like there will be, it's in the diffusion of innovation curve. It's like a model for how, well, it's supposed to be new innovations, you know, that might include new ideas, how it spreads and how it's adopted. And the idea is you have this kind of bell curve of people adopting at different points, and you could look for people who are innovators or early adopters with respect to veganism, and you can certainly find people who are on the laggard end of the scale. But the point here is it's a social phenomenon such that these people, by the time they're in the minority who are not doing the thing, you know, the pressure increases. And so yeah, the way to go about it is to focus on these early people who are reachable, exactly as you're saying, because the later people, they'll need the additional pressure from society and everyone else having done it first.
And that's what we want to do here, like especially also in AV with our approach and communication. Do you think you will do that in the...
Yeah, I've said before, like being a meat eater in a world where vegans are 2% is pretty easy and you can get away with it, right? Being a meat eater in a world where vegans are 90%, or like being the only guy who's still insisting that I need to be eating dead animals, that's an entirely different social proposition, right? So the people who are holding out will be subject to those social pressures eventually.
The future too now after we talk? Please check it out. We need more activists on the street, but also online. Okay. And that's why I'm here, like encouraging vegans who already understood it's wrong to exploit animals to really, first of all, educate them on the real meaning of veganism. It's not about environment and health. It's about the victims. Yeah. It's about the animals. And second...
Very true, Tone. Yeah, very true. We've been looking at a bunch of things that are on that theme of like shockingly high rates of agreement that, you know, certain farming practices are wrong. 47% of Americans saying that we should ban slaughterhouses, right? When you ask people's views on this stuff, almost nobody wants to say, yeah, I'll be the one to defend abuse on factory farms. Nobody wants that to be happening. Even Paul Word, when I spoke to him, just denied it, right? He didn't want to defend animal suffering on factory farms. He just said animals are not suffering on factory farms. What a take. What a take.
To like give you the tools to be activists yourself. And even if you don't find the time to go to a Cube of Truth, which we call our actions, you got some resources there to really learn the way of communication we use.
Brilliant, mate. Yeah. And be the voice, right?
Yeah, be the voice.
Activism101.com. Not heard of this before. Cool logo, AV. I do like their logo. Oh, look, here's the flowchart. This was mentioned earlier. Hello, how do you feel about humans exploiting other animals? Do you agree that we should respect other animals? Can you truly respect animals if you consume their flesh, milk, and eggs? Do you know the definition of veganism? Do you feel there's anything preventing you from going vegan? Do you know what the number one benefit is? If you were in that position, how long would you want this injustice to end? Should the number of animals be exploited for you be 0 or more? So vegan from now. Yeah, these are cool to know that there is such a structured way of doing this. I wondered how all of these people are so consistent with what they say. We've been watching a few of these and they're all pretty good at sticking to the script. I will say, whatever they got going on at AV, they've done a good job of, I want to say, herding cats, because I feel that people who are inclined towards activism are likely quite sort of independent-minded and kind of have their views about things and probably have their views about how things should be done. And I imagine it's kind of a challenge when you have these characters turning up to do some structured activism and you're trying to get them to do it a certain way, and probably a lot of people don't want to do it that way, right? But they have done a really good job, AV, of like building a model that works and that is recognizable and that can reach people and be really consistent as well. I'm impressed with how consistent these people are. They're like different people saying the same things.
So do you want to give a commitment now to be active?
It makes it look quite easy when you see it in this form. Hey, you just got to remember these 9 things, right? You probably even have them on your phone so you can glance down if you lose where you are. But I do like that that's makes it simple. They've got all different languages as well, look.
More active to be a...
I've already have been in the last few months, so I can I want to be more active 100%.
So I would suggest taking this card. This is from our organization. Like,
nice tone. Yeah, nice. That is a big benefit of having a structured way to go about a conversation. Hey, less gish galloping, because that is really where most debates die, I feel. And I was watching my conversation with Paul Wood, and he really is going for the gish gallop on every point. Like, don't answer the question, pivot, bring up like 10 other things. And I was very grateful to have had AY's advice going into that debate, which is basically to not entertain the irrelevant stuff. Don't get suckered into think, oh, he said something about breeds of dog, and I have some views on breeds of dog, so I want to go after that point. Like, no, just stick to the original point that you were talking about, hammer it home, right? I think that was really, I did that really effectively in that conversation, if I do say so myself.
What vegans need to learn, being direct, being strict, being outspoken.
And that's, you know, when he said the thing about most animals don't suffer on factory farms, that was on the 3rd time of asking. So he did avoid the question and try and gish gallop about something else twice, and it was only through interrupting him and saying, no, that's not what I asked you, that I eventually got him to say the line, which I can only imagine if he hasn't already, will eventually look back and think, I must have had something wrong in that conversation where I said animals don't suffer on factory farms.
Spoken and being firm and being honest, saying they are hypocrites, is the most respectful thing we can do, because only when we have a feeling of feeling unwell with our actions, we're going to change. Otherwise, we will never change.
Well, you don't line up then.
That is so true. That only when we feel bad about what we're doing are we actually going to change. I think this is a big thing that vegans can miss about cognitive dissonance. Is this in these slides? Where do I find this? Oh, I know where to find it. This point about cognitive dissonance, right? There's kind of a lot of vegans seem to have kind of half of the message on this. Here we go. So this is cognitive dissonance when your behavior is misaligned with your attitudes or beliefs. Could also have different attitudes and beliefs going in opposite directions, right? But there's two opposites each other, and it causes this tension, and this feeling of the tension, the misalignment, is the cognitive dissonance. And a lot of vegans seem to have the idea that if you push this and give people the cognitive dissonance, well, they're so committed to the behavior that they're actually going to change the attitudes in the direction of the behavior if you push it. And then they'll say, oh, okay, I guess I do think it's fine to abuse animals and stuff like that, right? That can happen. That definitely can happen. But not in all cases. And in fact, when we do get some behavior change, it's normally a result of this process, right? By causing this cognitive dissonance in the middle, and then people aligning their behavior with the actions, they're aligning their behavior with the beliefs, sorry. So this is like the omnivore's dilemma, as I put it. You can, once you are aware of this dissonance, you've basically got 3 options. You can either give up animal products. Oh, I'm covering up the thing again. You can either give up animal products, live with the dissonance, or try to come up with some sort of justification. And the thing is, you don't really have to do any of the three unless activists are pressuring you towards it and pushing the issue and making the cognitive dissonance be salient in your mind. You don't even have to live with the dissonance in the absence of this, right? You can just not think about it. But if you have activists like pushing the issue and making you think about it, you're going to be living with the dissonance, you're going to attempt to justify it, and eventually, hopefully, you're going to give up animal products. This is the evil lobbyist for the Centre for Consumer Freedom. And he pops up throughout this presentation to give bad advice to vegans. In this case, he's saying activists should always avoid giving people cognitive dissonance. So this is the incorrect advice. In fact, exactly as my friend Oliver was saying here, giving people cognitive dissonance is the route to getting them to change their behaviour.
And do you, like, you're constantly fighting yourself then, so you're not at peace with yourself, I don't think, unless you make an active change.
Only then you can create change.
Yeah.
So keep on being an activist.
Yes.
Have a nice rest of the evening. Okay, then make them active too.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
Creative activist.
possibly. I think it's quite difficult. I mean, I work full time and I've got a new...
These are the people who need Vegan 2.0, right? When you say become an activist, it sounds like such a massive commitment. It's, I've got to go to this bloody march now. Like, this is going to take over my weekend. This is going to take over my life, basically. And, you know, especially if you're speaking to an AV guy, you've seen the cubes and stuff. Am I going to go and stand in that cube? A lot of people are just not going to do it if they think that that's what it is. Vegan 2.0 is very easy to do. We are just posting on social media and giving money to charity. And emailing people on the Pain League platform. So it's a super low bar to entry and is super impactful for animals. Vegan 2.0, I think, is a really good framework to offer people in this kind of situation. Because here you are, right? You've been down the dialogue. Are you going to be an activist? Cool concept, by the way. It's the same, just dialogue tree, but ending up in activism. And, well, people think it's a big effort. People think I'm going to have to turn up to stuff. I'm going to have to, you know... right, schlep into the march in the rain or whatever. Activism sounds like a lot of hard work, and some of it is. But fortunately, how difficult something is doesn't necessarily correlate with how impactful it is. So we've found the things which are the most impactful for the least effort, and we've called it Vegan 2.0.
house that I've got to do up, and I don't live in a city, you know, and
at least once a month you would find the time, right? Yeah. And that's what I mean. I mean, you can join in Glasgow.
So I did an event with We the Free where you just you put the tablets up and people come over, they watch the video, and then you speak to them after, and I found that really effective because people have already been confronted with it, and then you're just talking to them about what they've seen rather than being this is what's happening. People actually have to see it for their own eyes.
I also think that you probably do have to be an effective communicator.
Yes, and we provide you with the tools to be an effective communicator.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, because we have 10 years of experience now. I'm myself personally, I talked to over 10,000 of.
It's interesting how similar the format is, where you're driving towards the conclusion. In this case, it's becoming an activist, not becoming a vegan, and kind of battling through the various excuses on the way there. I mean, even doing something once a month, if the something is turning up to a physical event, again, I think it's great that some people do this. And I've said that I'll, give this a go and probably put something on the channel about it. But having the low, making it easy is obviously a good thing. That's why I bloody love the Fast Action Network so much, which, by the way, I had a look and we don't have any new things to do on there. I did look, but I guess they didn't put new things on over the weekend. But they make it so easy. They've done a fantastic job of reducing the number of clicks needed to do something for animals. I don't even have to do that many clicks, let alone turning up to some event, right? It's been made trivially easy for me. And that's a fantastic thing, right? Some of those donations to animal charities went to paying some developer to make this platform and make it be easy, because we know that we can impact more animals if it's easy. So I think it's so important to have easy, impactful activism that you can offer to people to do. So I feel like a lot of these people would have been convinced if the conclusion was vegan 2.0 and they just had to do some modest charity donations and do a bit of posting on social media and emails. Sounds way easier than doing activism, which just sounds like impossibly strenuous.
Of people, and what you get out of that is that you find the right questions to ask, because after all we should just ask questions to let them come to the conclusions themselves, and that is working really fine. And I want to give you this card. You can scroll down and there is activism101.com. That's a page where you can actually learn the approach we have. And I feel anywhere you go, even like if it's Anonymous for the Voices, or if it's like in your personal space and your like friends, family, whatever, this really helps you to really be a strong and strict voice for the animals, to not trigger their defenses, to focus on your energy on the reachable people, but to really achieve someone to become a vegan. And that is like the least we can do for the animals, right? We are their only hope after all, because they can't defend themselves, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna be active now.
Well, I can't promise. That's the
Vegan 2.0, mate. Do for people like this, just ask for donations, right? Money makes the world go round. Not everyone can be on the front lines or whatever, but they could be funding it instead. She would have signed up and get paid for, activist training or whatever. She doesn't want to have to go to things, right? Here's a middle-aged person who's impossibly busy, and she ain't going to be spending her Saturdays doing this, but she would probably donate or do other stuff, right? She's on side.
That's the truth.
You know that.
Am I lagging a bit?
That's interesting, because I speak to like mostly non-vegans, and it's always when I speak to them and I ask them, so you're going to be vegan now after all the conclusions they said, and they always say something like, yeah, I will try, I can't promise, I think about it, but actually I think it needs commitment for that. And
at your work, you tell people.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've tried to do things at work, but it hasn't worked. I tried to set up a vegan group, and I've tried to speak to the sustainability. I work for the NHS, and I tried to speak to the sustainability lead. There was one before, and now there's another one, and I've been talking about the plant-based hospital stuff, and what's that? Greener by Default. So they're
Do we work with them?
offering, to help hospitals and healthcare settings transition and change their menus and stuff. So I've been trying to do that, but it doesn't get very far.
Stop using the word trying and start doing. That is what I always say to the non-vegans. It's not about trying. If you are committed to help the animals, you will find a way. Even if it's for you and your situation. I don't know your situation, but at some point when you visit her in Glasgow or something, you will go to the vegan outreach event together. And that is one way to do it. You can speak to others about it, you can learn about it, and that is basically the commitment I'm asking for. So you're gonna do it?
I'm really clearly identifying the issue here now. Like, it is just... Oh, nice. Mel and Steve in the background. Yeah, there is just such a need for low-effort activism options. Like, here's someone who is doing her best, right? And she just doesn't want to... A day a month is a lot, right? You've only got, what, 8 or 9, maybe 10 weekend days in a month. I'm gonna spend one of them going to the right. For a lot of people, again, it's one of those things, a bit like being vegan, I guess, where once you do it, you kind of take it for granted and don't think it's that big a deal, and therefore don't necessarily think it's a big deal to ask other people to do it. But as you're seeing, like, people, I mean, it is a big ask, right? I think it's a good idea for these guys. I love this idea, by the way, and I think the well, first of all, going to a place like this where you're going to find almost 100% vegans who can be potentially persuaded to become activists. And I think this is probably going to be higher expected value than him persuading people to go vegan, because these activists are then going to create vegans on his behalf, right? So getting vegans to go activists, I think, is a really, really good idea. at having like an easy structure for them to do it in an impactful way. Vegan 2.0, I gotta get some Vegan 2.0 cards.
You're not going to let me go otherwise, are you? But I don't want to lie to you.
Don't only say animals should be defended. Be a voice for them. They need you. Okay? What's your name?
Becky.
Becky. And you?
Cara.
Okay, Oliver. Then be a voice now? Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot. There are so many ways to do activism,
Yeah.
and you will find a way that fits your personality the best. But the only thing I'm asking is not like join this group now and promise. The thing I'm asking is to never be silent about when you see a victim like the animals being victimized, exploited. To never accept it as a fact, but to oppose this oppression. Always. Yeah?
And it means the whole world to them. You know, activism for us, it's just a part of our lives, but it is their entire lives for the animals.
Well, that was good. I appreciated that. I think the strategy of getting vegans to becoming activists is going to be more tractable than getting non-vegans to be vegans. Although, of course, we ultimately need to do both of those things. I do think that having ready, packaged, low-effort things that you can ask people to do is an essential part of it. Because the ask is not that clear as well. If it ends up as like, well, there's a bunch of different types of activism you could do, and maybe it's stickers, and maybe it's leaflets or whatever else. It's like, I don't know. I feel like that increases the chances of someone ultimately doing nothing. But I love the concept though. Right, what else have we got here? I haven't watched this, but it's a Humane League video called Good News for Animal Lovers. So I think this is just going to be a nice little good news section, and I think I'll probably wrap it up after this. Let's take a look.
Hi, just checking in again. Need a little good news? Me too. Let's do it.
Barbie Keel, an animal rescuer from the UK, turned 90 years old this year. After 50 years, she has rescued 10,000 animals from abuse or abandonment and has no plans to stop now. Wow, bloody hell, that's a good rate, isn't it? You got to be doing, what's that, 200 animals a year? That's crazy. It's like she's saved an animal every other day for 50 years. Could have done it in like a year of Vegan 2.0, but you know. But you know, she's hands-on saving animals from abandonment and stuff like that, right? Some days I'm shattered, but then I get a little nose boop or a face peers up at me and I remember why I'm doing this. Wooster the rooster found a safe home. Wooster was wandering around a Los Angeles apartment complex all alone when a group of concerned animal lovers stepped in. They contacted Farm Sanctuary for help in finding Wooster a safe place to thrive. Thanks to the power of community, Wooster is now happily with his friends. Earlier this year, Mexico added animal protection to its constitution. Article 4 of Mexico's constitution prohibiting the mistreatment of animals and directing the Mexican state to guarantee the protection, adequate treatment and conversion. You got it. Article 3 of Mexico's constitution, which pertains to the education system, was also amended to require that animal welfare be included in school curricula for grade school and high school students. That seems pretty huge, to be honest. Though there's still work to be done, organisations like Animal Equality remain at the forefront advocating for animal rights.
Advocating for animals matters and makes a difference. Guess it's time for me to go. Bye.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Hey, that person, Barbie Keel. That's based as hell. Look at all our animal ornaments in the background. Those are all the meerkats. She's got a flamingo down here as well. Well, that was awesome. That was a nice way to finish it up, hey? Thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate you being here with me. I've loved doing these streams because, like I say, I do this kind of thing full time. I'm reading about animal welfare laws, different advocacy strategies and so on. This is my job, thinking about this stuff. But I've still learned a hell of a lot from doing it in a structured and consistent way. I'm doing like 2 or 3 hours every evening. More sort of reading than I would be, right? Like I said, I'd be sitting on the sofa watching The Office if I wasn't doing this. So I feel like this is a better use of my time. I hope that you guys are getting value out of it as well. Really what I want to do is to push everyone to doing more impactful vegan advocacy for animals. Yeah, I'm really pleased that people are engaging and doing it. We got the big win last time from Subway. We got nothing new on the Fast Action Network yet, but we're going to be building on that momentum and stacking up the W's. So we'll be straight back on it as soon as they've got more stuff for us to do. We are ready to receive orders. I appreciate you, Tone. Appreciate you, Humphrey. Oppenheimer, thank you for being here. And everyone else who's tuned in as well. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.